17th at 7 o'clock. The Board of Trustees on October 17th will convene in closed session pursuant to Sections 551.071, consultation with attorney to seek and receive legal advice, 551.072, discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, and 551.074, consider the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employees to hear complaints or charges against a public officer or employee, also including consultation with district's legal counsel regarding the possible settlement agreement in TEA docket number 304-SE0813. We will reconvene at approximately 7:15 p.m. Thank you. Mic not on? Okay. We'll try that again. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, I'll open this work session meeting of the Arlington Independent School District Board of Trustees for October 17th, beginning at 7:22 p.m. I want to thank everyone for coming out to be with us this evening. President Hogg is returning from a business trip and may join us a bit later. We'd like to start our meeting with the opening ceremony, so would you please join Dr. Evan Smith in leading us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, if you take a moment to please silence your cell phones and electronics devices to avoid disruptions to those around you. And we'll take a moment, now if you'll join me in a moment of silence. Okay. On this evening, first we'll consider administrative appointments. Do we have a motion to approve the administrative appointments as discussed in executive session?
Move to approve.
Thank you,
Second.
Dr. All right. We have a motion by Dr. Reich and a second by Mr. Hibbs. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Where's my vote? Yeah, there it is. This one right here. Okay. All four trustees present this evening vote in the affirmative. Ms. Pena and Mr. Pompa cannot be with us this evening. Dr. Cavazos, could you please introduce our new administrators?
Thank you, Ms. Sullins. First, I'd like to introduce the principal for Atherton Elementary School, Ms. Tanya Coleman. You're welcome to applaud. Thank you. Tanya attended the Fontbonne University in St. Louis, obtained her Bachelor of Arts in Elementary Education, and obtained her Master of Education in Educational Administration there as well. Most recently, an assistant principal at Lake Worth ISD, has been an assistant principal in St. Louis as well, and a 4th through 6th grade technology teacher. Tanya, congratulations. Anything you'd like to say, anyone you'd like to introduce tonight?
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board and trustees, Superintendent Dr. Cavas, and the community. I am very excited to be principal of Atherton Elementary. Thank you for entrusting that opportunity to me. I would like to say hello to my family and friends watching online in St. Louis, Missouri. I finally made it, yay. So I am very excited. Thank you for your support and your love. Our work is not that of one person, rather than collective responsibility of all of us. 100% of the students at Atherton Elementary will excel and reach their full potential in becoming lifelong learners. Atherton students will strive to be the best, thrive when faced with challenges, take pride in themselves, and be prepared for the global workforce. Educator and poet Andrea Aziant stated, "Our words only carry so much weight. Our actions tell the true story." Atherton has a supportive community with talented students. Through our collective actions, we will tell a story of excellence. I would just like to introduce my two daughters with me today, Chastity and Hope. And my son couldn't make it today, but thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce the Assistant Principal for Piercy Elementary School, Mr. Tyson Jones. Tyson attended the University of Texas at Arlington and received his Bachelor of Arts in Theater Arts, and attended UT Arlington for his Master of Education in Ed Leadership. Most recently, a fourth grade teacher at Morton Elementary School, has taught second grade at Blanton Elementary School as well, and has been a substitute teacher for us as well. So Tyson, congratulations. Anything you'd like to say, anyone you'd like to introduce?
Yes, I would just like to say to the board members and Dr. Cavazos, first of all, a sincere thank you for this opportunity. When I first started working for Arlington ISD 5 years ago, this was a goal that I set for myself. So it feels pretty incredible to be standing here tonight achieving that. I talked to Dr. Cavazos a couple weeks ago, and he told me, you're in a very good spot because there's a lot of people that want to be an AP for this district right now. And there are a lot of people that want to be at Piercy Elementary right now. And I feel pretty lucky to have gotten both of those, and I'm very honored that Dr. Cavazos and Dr. Wirtz and Ms. Turnipseed entrusted me with this position, so thank you all for that. When I first went into Piercy and met Ms. Turnipseed and the staff there for my first interview, I know that I had stepped into a very amazing place. So I'm just extremely excited to see what Ms. Turnipseed and I can do together to lead Piercy to achieve even more success than it already has, and to help Arlington ISD become the premier district that we all want it to be. Quickly, I want to introduce, I have some family and friends with me that I care about dearly. I have some of my family from Blanton Elementary, where I started from. I have some family from Morton Elementary, where I recently departed from. And lastly, I have a lot of family from Piercy Elementary that I just joined. So thank you all very much for coming. I can't wait to get started.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and certainly welcome. As is our custom, we ask the appointees to follow Mr. Hill to the lobby for a receiving line, so each of us can meet you and welcome you. If you would please let the board go first, we would appreciate that, so we will take a 15-minute break. Thank you.
Mr. Barron, it comes from committee. We still have a second, so we'll just take the second from the committee. At this time, do we have any discussion? Mr. Barron, let me ask one question. We keep hearing this update 98, I think is what it is. So does that include this, or is that another thing that's going to be coming back in the next time? I think that's coming back next time. Okay. So this has updated everything except
There's going to be an update come out around 1st of November, I think.
from TASB for the legal.
This was just to bring us up to speed before that hits.
And is, Dr. Frostos, you may know that, is that update going to include the new pieces from last legislative session?
That's correct. That is
Okay.
what that update includes.
Okay. Perfect. So we have a motion by Mr. Mayor and a second from committee. No further discussion. At this time, please vote. 5 trustees present, 5 trustees voting in the affirmative. Ms. Pena and Mr. Pompa are not present tonight. Next, we'll move on to action item B. Consider recommendation proposed termination of contract of Virginia Law. This time, do we have a motion? Mark?
Your microphone is working. Is anybody else's working right now? I can hear you over the
Yeah, now we're back.
Yours is not?
Yeah, mine's working now.
Yeah, they're
They're
working now.
all working now.
We still have no lights, Mark, but we can deal with that after the meeting. Thank you. This time we'll consider action item B, consider recommendation to propose termination of contract of Virginia Law. At this time, do we have a motion? Mr. Barron?
I move to approve the superintendent's recommendation and to propose termination and/or discharge of Virginia Lot's contract during the contract term as discussed in closed session. and to send written notice to Ms. Lott of this proposed action as required by law.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Barron, and a second by Dr. Reich. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. We're missing one. There we go. 5 trustees voting in the affirmative. Action item C, consider and take possible action regarding proposed settlement agreement and TEA docket number 304 SE 0813. Do we have a motion?
Mr. President, I have a motion.
Rush.
I move to approve the proposed settlement agreement in TEA docket number 304-SE-0813 as discussed in closed session.
We have a motion by Dr. Reich. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Ms. Solons. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. 5 trustees present, 5 trustees voting in the affirmative. Motion passes. Next, we'll move on to discussion items. Item A, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee semi-annual report to the board. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Hogg. And at this time, we'd like the CBOC committee to present their semi-annual report, and Cindy Powell will start us off on that presentation as they have reviewed the progress of our bond. Cindy.
Yes, this evening we have representatives from the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee here to make their semi-annual report to the board, and the committee chairperson, Jeannie Dekine, will make that report.
Good evening, President Hogg, members of the Board of Trustees, Superintendent Cavazos. On behalf of the members of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, I'm pleased to present our semi-annual update on the progress of the sales of the bonds authorized in the 2009 bond election. As a brief overview to the board and the audience members who may not be familiar with the CBOC, the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee was established to provide transparency and enhance public confidence in the use of the proceeds from the sales of bonds authorized in the 2009 bond election. As a part of our charge, the CBOC makes findings and recommendations to the Board of Trustees relating to the expenditure of bond funds authorized by AISD voters on November 3rd, 2009. Additionally, the CBOC is charged with monitoring the progress of the 2009 bond program, as well as finding ways the district can maximize the potential of the 2009 bond program so that our children and that the taxpayers receive the best outcomes for the dollar. Our membership is made up of a diverse group of Arlington citizens. Our committees serve 2-year terms staggered so that no more than 1/2 of the committee turns over in any 1 year. We also represent all students, school campuses, and taxpayers within the boundaries of AISD. And I'd like to thank these members for their time and their very thoughtful questions, and they truly are a great team to work with. We generally meet once a quarter. We've met 3 times since our last board update in February. Our first meeting was held at Adams and Johns Elementary Schools, where we received an update of the educational specifications for the facilities assessment from Jacobs Project Management. Our second meeting was at the newly completed campus of Adams Elementary School, and a special thank you to Principal Leslie Rhodes for giving us a guided tour of the state-of-the-art facility. In the third meeting in September, we discussed ongoing upgrades to campus fire alarm systems and endorsed the expenditure of surplus bond funds to cover the cost. Before we present the specific board bond update areas, it simply cannot be said enough how instrumental the Board of Directors Advisory Board, as well as the district staff, has been in facilitating our work. Thank you, of course, goes out to Cindy Powell, who I don't think she sleeps at all, ever. Bob Carlisle, Chad Branham, Jeremy Earnhardt, Colleen Martin, Tony Jollinger, Mandy Mew, and Jill Galloway, who have all provided status updates at our meetings and have responded so quickly and thoroughly to our very often very detailed questions. We are happy to report that a total of $171.5 million, or 87% of the $197.5 million bond package, has been funded and committed, leaving roughly $18.3 million budgeted for the remaining 18 months of the bond program. The budgeted amount does not factor in a current estimated surplus of $7.7 million. This bond program in its fourth year is on time and under budget, and there are no major problems with construction or procurement, and there are no environmental, legal, or real estate issues. It is the consensus of our committee that in all areas, fine arts, transportation, technology, and facilities, the district is at or ahead of schedule with regard to the progress of the 5-year bond program. In review of how the $197.5 million bond package was initially allocated, covering the 4 core areas, as depicted here, let's look at the progress in each area in a little more detail, starting with fine arts. During the first 3.5 years, we have spent or obligated 78% of the $8.35 million allotted for new uniforms, orchestra, and band equipment. For the 2013 bond proceeds, requesting a total of $1.2 million for instruments, equipment, that has been submitted to the district as of September. And we'd like to thank Bill Huff for his service during this project, as well as welcoming Jeremy Earnhardt. And thank their team especially for continued updates right down to each individual instrument and their fiscal responsibility. The new uniforms and instruments are clearly revitalizing our orchestras and bands across the district. The next area of the bond package is transportation. 2013 bus purchases include 24 propane buses, 12 of which were regular education buses and 12 were special education buses. 20 of the 24 buses had been received and are operational, and the delivery of the remaining 4 buses was expected by this month. I don't know if there's an update to that, but by the time of this presentation, they were expected. The district has been awarded a grant of nearly $1 million for rebates on the 2013 purchase of propane buses through the Texas Emissions Reduction Plan. This grant requires that each bus replaced with grant funds be destroyed. Rebates will be received once the old buses are destroyed, and the destruction of the old buses is currently underway. The district has also applied for a federal rebate of 50 cents per gallon for propane fuel consumed during the second quarter of 2013, and the total amount of the claim is just over $43,000. Moving on to technology. 85% of technology upgrade funds have been spent or obligated to date. The campus technology bond allocations have been modified from the original design to help maximize the use of technology in the classroom and ensure that the technology bond requests are directed to student learning. The schools will focus their bond requests on mobile devices. Campus technology requests are reviewed by the area superintendents, the chief academic officer, and technology division administration to ensure that the requests align with the strategic plan and the curriculum audit. Previous CBOC reports had emphasized that our belief that technology learning and development for teachers is critical to the successful deployment of the technology in our classrooms. And we were very pleased to learn at our last update that 174 technology training opportunities were offered this summer alone. Over 3,300 participants were trained, and we also learned that the fall training will also include learning opportunities via webinar or online courses. Now for the largest section, facilities. We only have 4% left to spend of the $115.9 million allocated for the facilities budget. All mechanical, engineering, and plumbing projects scheduled for 7 schools for summer 2013 are complete. The original 2009 bond project list included reports to install standalone HVAC units for 12 elementary school computer labs, but technology is moving more towards classroom integration, and computer labs will no longer be a part of the elementary school design. Therefore, the district recommended that this project be eliminated. A need has since been identified to ventilate technology infrastructure rooms at schools throughout the district. No funds were included in the 2009 bond project list for this work. Savings from the HVAC projects that I just referred to could provide funds to ventilate the technology infrastructure rooms. Security upgrades have also been made at all campuses since our last report. The keyless entry system is completely installed and active at all campuses and 3 administrative buildings, and additional systems have been installed and activated at the elementary school campuses. Major construction projects have expanded to include additions at several elementary schools, with construction forecasted to be complete in time for the 2014-15 school year. The first one was Adams Elementary School. Construction is complete. The school was dedicated on August 24th, and it opened to students on August 26th. Total construction costs were $227,000 less than the guaranteed maximum price. And I just wanted to share kind of allegorically how much the completion of this school meant to this committee in particular. Since the committee was convened in 2010, we've seen the school from its plans through construction. We were able to actually walk through the facility while it was partially completed, to having an actual meeting there while it was completed. And it truly has become a school that our entire community is excited about. Just yesterday, my mother and my 3 little girls were able to take a truckload full of books over to Adams Elementary School. And for anyone who's ever met my 4-year-old, she's not impressed unless you are a Texas Ranger or an astronaut or a princess. And she went into Adams Elementary School, and she has not stopped talking about how lucky those kids who get to go to school there are. So she's all excited about being a big girl, getting to go to school, hoping that her school will be like Adams Elementary. So I think that's huge. If Disney princesses are the only thing that can, encourage a 4-year-old, and Adams Elementary has done it, that's a huge accomplishment. So we're very excited about Adams Elementary. Construction on classrooms at Knox, Blanton, and Rankin will begin in November and will be complete prior to the start of the school year in August 2014. As you recall, on August 15th, the Board of Trustees approved the use of surplus 2009 bond funds to expand the scope of the project. Administration originally expected that all 10 of the planned new classrooms planned for Knox could be created within the existing gyms. However, that is not possible. So new construction will be required for 4 of the classrooms. At Rankin, the library is undersized, and the project design includes enlarging it by expanding into 2 classrooms adjacent to the library. 2 classrooms will be added to the classroom additions to replace the 2 rooms used for the library expansion. And additional needs have been identified beyond the original project scope to prepare the schools for their larger enrollments and improve student safety and security. Paving work to improve traffic flow and additional parking at Blanton and Rankin, and the enclosure of a breezeway at Knox to improve security. Some additional facilities projects were approved for funding through the bond program, including replacement underway for 2 failed boilers at Shackelford Junior High, which should be complete prior to the beginning of the heating season. A new fire alarm system was installed at Crouch Elementary before school started in August. The district also replaced fire alarm systems at Shackelford and Sam Houston High School. These were not in the original bond package, but the CBOC voted unanimously to recommend that they be covered by the bond surplus. And finally, the cooling tower at Bowie High School was replaced before the beginning of the school term. Again, the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee looks forward to continued coordination with the district staff to ensure that this program is implemented properly over the remaining 18 months of the program. And subject to your questions, that concludes our brief.
Thank you, Jeannie. Dr. Rush.
Thank you, President Hogg. Mr. Kine, thank you very much for the report. Thank you for your service as chair of the committee, as the board chair of the liaison committee, as well as Mr. Hibbs and Mr. Pompa that's not here. Thank you. And for, is it Mr. Berry? Are you the only other CBOC member here? Anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Berry.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for the work that you guys do. It's really integral piece of what we're trying to accomplish here with transparency and fiscal responsibility and accountability to the people that approve this, our citizens. And I know there's more work to come. There was a couple of questions that I had regarding the surpluses, and this might be for Ms. Powell. Where are we as far as the total amount of surplus? And at this point, is there any rough projection that that's going to increase still or not?
We have, I think it's $8.1 million total surplus on the projects that have begun to date, since 2009 to date. We still have roughly $17.5 million of bonds to sell, and we will sell those in probably February. for the
Okay.
projects that'll be completed next year. So out of that, there's $4.3 million for facilities. And that's the one area where there might be some opportunity to have some savings, but those are all for mechanical and electrical projects. And I think we know we had some very expensive projects
Right.
that we had saved to the end. So my hunch at the moment is that that number will not grow at this point. It may to some small degree, but not by much.
Okay, okay. And any other projected surplus that we were going to utilize or that we have previously is already accounted for?
It's already recognized, right.
Okay,
That,
so this is above and
that
beyond
number
that.
is net of the other projects that we've approved out
Yeah.
of surplus in the past, so.
The other question that I would have is, in regards to the facility assessment, I know we're still digesting that data and employing the action plans and the different things, and our capital needs steering committee is looking at a lot of things. The breezeway for security was mentioned at Knox as an example. Are there any easy things, I guess, for lack of a better term, that we can pick out of the facilities assessment now that we might be able to bundle in with some of these new costs to save on our dollars going forward overall?
And we may, staff is actually going to work next week, Wednesday through Friday, with our consultants from DeYoung Richter and Jacobs Project Management, and really get our first look at, as far as the senior staff goes, at all the data, and we'll begin to see what is in there in terms of projects, and we may identify some things as we go forward over the next few months that we say, you know, this is small enough and it's something that we think we can go ahead and do now,
And just
and
slide in.
we'll evaluate that as we move along.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, excellent, excellent. Well, that's great. And then I think that's all I've got for you, Ms. Powell. Thank you for the information. Ms. DeKine, the only other thing that I would say is, as has always been the charge to the committee, if there's anything that you as a committee define or discover that would help improve the communication process, because that's always been the concern, to make sure that you as the oversight committee get first crack at the information. And I think I commend Ms. Powell and Mr. Carlisle and their staff for really doing that in a great fashion. But if there's anything that can be enhanced or improved in that communication process that you see as an efficiency or something that we can evolve for the next CBOC going forward, assuming there's another bond in the future, we'd be all ears regarding that. So thank you very much for everything. And if you need, we can ask a lot more questions to keep you here so you don't have to go back to the Twins or anything anytime soon. Just kidding.
I might just hang out here and enjoy the
Okay.
quiet.
All right, thank you very much. That's all I had.
Thank you, Dr. Reich. Mr. Hibbs.
Dr. Rice said much what I wanted to say, but Tim Berry, thank you very much for serving on this committee. He is also a real estate agent in this area, and I'm hoping that you'll take that message back to the realtors about the good things that are happening here in Arlington with the bond. But we do appreciate your working with this committee. Just a little bit more on Ms. DeKine, because she's very humble. When they're talking about her twins, she mentioned her 4-year-old out of the 3 girls. Her twins are really young. And for her to serve on this committee in the capacity that you have, to be the president of the Junior League, to sit on our facilities committee, and what you're doing for this community, you're a rock star. So thank you so much for your service, and we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Those twins help our number count eventually in AISD. Ms. Sullins.
Thank you, Ms. DeKine, for all that you do, echoing what Mr. Hibbs says, and then to hear the Libby report, I'll call it, is extra glad to hear it, because it was really wonderful to see the students at the school and how excited they were. So appreciate you sharing that with us as well. I did have one question. In past CBOC reports, we had something of a letter grade system.
Yes.
You know, and did the committee decide to abandon the letter grade system?
We have not decided to abandon it. We decided that this was kind of equivalent to a progress report, if you will. And we did talk about at the next presentation to the board, that kind of being the end-of-year report for that particular fiscal year, that we would consider using the letter grade format again.
Okay, thank you. Just a goal-oriented trustee and want to see
Yes.
my grades. So.
But I could give you a gold star.
I'll
if you
take
would
that.
like.
I'll
Okay.
take that. And please tell Libby that I got one tonight, too.
I will.
Thank you.
You'll get your sticker later, Miss Sullins. So, Jeannie, one real quick question. I just had one little piece. The keyless entry that we've added, I think, was a great addition. The only thing I've heard is teachers say, when are we having more of it to access on more doors and things of that nature? Did the committee have any discussion over that as I was at it, or has that come up much at all?
We did have some discussion at our last meeting after the district staff left about the security upgrades. There was not a clear consensus on the level at which we felt they were, could they be improved on? Could they not be improved on? So we chose not to address that specifically, other than those security upgrades have happened. There is a portion of the committee that would like to consider and discuss additional security upgrades to also include additional keyless entry systems.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I know that's an issue. And on behalf of the board, again, I echo what my colleagues have said. You do a wonderful job, and your whole committee. This is one of the most successful committees we've had, and y'all set the tone for other committees, and we thank you for your hard work. With that, we thank you for your time tonight,
Thank
and
you.
we look forward to seeing you in, 3 more months about?
Six-ish? Yeah.
6-ish. We'll
Yes.
take it.
We'll be back for a final grade. You're welcome.
She'd like a sticker
Yes.
And a report.
and a report card. Thank you so much. Up next, we have our discussion item B, Capital Needs Steering Committee update. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Hogg. And this evening, we'd like to present and include in every agenda, really, our Capital Needs Steering Committee and an update on the process of where we are. We've had some community dialogues, and I think it's important for the board and the public to understand where we are. So Ms. Powell will introduce this.
President Hogg, board members, Dr. Cavazos, you've just heard a report on our 2009 bond program and how we're progressing. We have a capital needs steering committee that is currently meeting to look forward at what our needs are now and project those needs out to the future. And so I'm very pleased this evening to introduce Chad Bates, who is one of the co-chairs of that committee, along with Jeff Williams. Chad will make a presentation this evening on the work that has occurred since the last time this board met, and he'll specifically talk about community dialogues that have occurred just in the last 2 evenings. So.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. President Hogg, Dr. Cavazos, distinguished members of the board, it's my privilege to give you a brief overview of where we stand as a committee. We have a lot of work to do. We're just getting started, but I'm very pleased to state that we had 4 very significant meetings over the last 2 evenings in our community. We're going to go through a quick overview of that, but for those that are not aware of what the steering committee's purpose is to provide recommendations to the Arlington Independent School District Board of Trustees for prioritized facility and identified capital needs through the year 2019 and possibly beyond to support the district's strategic plan, and that obviously we're very, very in tune with the world-class type district that we're all shooting for within AISD, and I commend the board on your wisdom in creating the strategic plan, and I thank you for that. And I know it's being echoed throughout the community, and it's important that we spread the good work that's going on. As I said, we had 4 community dialogues, one at Sam Houston High School, one at Lamar High School, one at Bowie High School, and one at the Professional Development Center over the last 2 evenings. And they were very well attended. We had a total attendance of participants, not including the administration and board members, of 181 citizens. And I would like to thank the board members that came out to the meetings as well as the administration. It's really neat to see the type of support that as a district that we have from the professionals within the district. And Dr. Cavazos, your team should be commended for that support, to take time out of their evenings away from their families. So the purpose of the community dialogues, and I think this is important, was twofold. to solicit feedback from community members and begin really to facilitate dialogue where we are totally transparent, where members and citizens of our community have an opportunity to have a say in the direction of what we spend our money on going forward, and then to complete an educational framework questionnaire. And these results are going to help us determine as a committee and then bring recommendations to you ultimately at the board level of what levels of support do we have for different items that we are considering in terms of choices to spend our tax dollars on. The dialogue agendas is outlined on your screen, but basically Dr. Cavazos did a very important strategic plan overview, and this was something that in our prior steering committee discussions we felt like was critical so that those that have not really heard an overview of the strategic plan understand the vision of what we're trying to accomplish, and then just this component of our master facility plan, how that fits into our overall strategic plan. We had board members that welcomed and said a few words about the board's involvement and support in this process. And then from a citizen perspective, my co-chair Jeff Williams and I introduced to the members that were present, the citizens that were there, the citizens aspect of why we're trying to really get some significant input in this session. And we went through a quick overview of that. And then our consultants actually led the presentation and led a breakout session of various roundtable discussions, generally 6, 8, 10 people per table that had detailed discussions, and then their data was all assimilated in small group settings. And then there were some questionnaires that the committee had prepared in concert with our consultants. We made some modifications to those to make it a little more user-friendly to our citizens that were not familiar with some of the technical jargon. And each of the participants that came to the meetings did complete a questionnaire. That questionnaire for citizens that are watching tonight or present in the audience is online and available through 5 p.m. Monday. And we encourage you to go online if you haven't had a chance to do so and give your input. All of these questionnaires, all of the input will be analyzed going forward. This next week, my co-chair Jeff Williams and I will be attending with professional staff and our consultants and participating in the options development process. We have a couple of subcommittee meetings that are going on, particularly technology and transportation. And then on November the 14th, we'll have our third steering committee meeting to begin to synthesize the information and begin to draft the facilities options packet. Again, this is a pretty brief overview. Our work is just beginning, but I'm certainly here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, President Hogg. Mr. Bates, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for your tireless service as co-chair and other capacities that you've given this district over time. It's greatly appreciated. I just wanted to comment as one of the trustees at these meetings over the past couple of nights. The response was overwhelmingly positive by everybody in attendance that worked through these roundtable discussions and setting up their group consensus of different items of priority. And the community was just overwhelmingly pleased with the process, with how it was put together. The opportunity for the input, the level of transparency, and that we are seeking information and that we're going to be utilizing this information. That was a point to be expounded upon at each of the meetings, that this isn't just a lip service dog and pony show. Yeah, we kind of want your information, but we're not going to do anything with it. It was guaranteed that we are taking this data and we are going to transfer it directly into what our options choices will be. And everybody that I spoke to at these meetings were very much looking forward to being engaged in the next round of community meetings as well. And I want to commend Leslie Johnson for putting together the publication and marketing for this meeting on an extremely short timeline, and even with a very short lead notification time to the community, we had a great turnout. We already know our next meetings are going to be December 10th and 11th. The communications for that will go out considerably sooner, obviously, than this round. So I would expect, I mean, we had a great turnout with 181 participants. I'm thinking we're going to get a whole lot more this next round. The lead notification time plus the level of excitement and energy that was in each of the rooms that I experienced was great. So it's a very wonderful, healthy process, and I really don't know of any other district around that is getting so much input from the community. We really want to make sure up here that we're getting the pulse of the community and what we want and what will be world-class facilities. So again, Mr. Bates, thank you very much, and look forward to many nights ahead together.
My
Thank you.
privilege.
Perfect. Mr. Bates, thank you so much for the committee.
Thank you.
We'll see you many and many more times. So this is just the beginning. And once again, as Dr. Rice said, thank you for all your hard work. It is I know how much you have going on in your life, so it's nice to see someone so dedicated to AISD, and thank you for all your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to action item C, House Bill 5, update and implications. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Hogg. This evening, we'd like to present the House Bill 5 update, but probably more important than that is the implications of House Bill 5. The details of House Bill 5 are numerous, and so I'd like to have this opportunity for us to consider things such as our graduation requirements and things like that, to start having that conversation about those things that we know are important, that we be aligned with the state and House Bill 5. So Evan Smith is going to lead us through House Bill 5 and the implications. Evan.
Hi. President Hogg, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Cavazos, I'm pleased to stand before you and give you a little bit of an overview of what we have to come. I'm going to preface this a little bit by letting you know that we don't have all the information right now. The State Board of Education is continuing to work. They sent out a draft today at 4:30 of their upcoming meeting in November. I've read through that a bit. I don't have all that information internalized yet, but I'll be happy to answer as many questions as I possibly can, and we're also still waiting on guidance for the state and the rural interpretation as well. Every time I come to you, I'm focusing on Goal 2 and Goal 1, and lots of times Goal 3 as well, but this is all about inspired learners and engaged community, and the legislature this year really put forth an effort to give a little more freedom to local districts in some of the decisions that are made about our students. So Goal 2, prepare our graduates to excel in higher education or the career of their choice. And as you know, we're about that each and every day in the work that we do here in Arlington. Goal 1, actively engage and partner with parents in the educational process. Our beliefs that our commitment to our clear and focused vision will guide the district to the highest performance, and that effective teaching and leadership are essential for student achievement, and that our school environments impact achievement. And most of all, we feel that every student can succeed. We want to be that globally acknowledged premier school district, and we are on our way to meet that each and every day. We want to empower and engage all students to be contributing citizens, reaching their maximum potential through relevant, innovative, and rigorous learning experiences. So House Bill 5, what is it? It's big, and I'm not going to cover all of it today, but I'm going to cover mainly the graduation requirements and a few other things that can impact the district. The graduation program will change to a foundational program, and this is a foundational program built of 22 credits, and this is the foundation program without an endorsement. In addition to the foundation program, our students can get 1 of 5 or 2 of 5 endorsements or more, possibly. Those would be in the STEM area, in public service, in business and industry, arts and humanities, and then in multidisciplinary studies. Another change this year is that our top 10% have generally had that automatic enrollment into a four-year college of their choice, a public school here in Texas. Now, the students will need to be in that top 10%, but they also must graduate distinguished. So that is a bit of a change. I've done a side-by-side comparison here, And the first column is the discipline, and of course, the first thing we'll talk about is English Language Arts. The next column is the minimum high school plan as it stands today, and I'm going to have some colors on this in a minute because this is the state plan, but we've also augmented it to show what Arlington's plan is, because we require a little bit more than the state does. Then we have the recommended high school plan and the distinguished plan that as they currently are. And then in the far right-hand corner, you've got the foundational plan. So we're going to kind of do a little bit of comparison here. So if you look across, 4 credits for minimum, 4 for recommended, 4 for distinguished, and then 4 for the foundation. And you can see that they pretty much stay the same, with the exception that the 4th course will be an advanced English course. Those will either be defined by the state or defined by us, and we will talk about that shortly. In mathematics, currently it's 3, 4 and 4, 3 for the minimum, 4 and 4 for recommended and DAP, and then the foundation is also 3, and it's Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and an advanced course. In science, the state requires 2, and we require 3, so then when you see the red, that's the additional requirement by our district, and then 4 in the other 2 that we have currently, the recommended and the DAP, and then the foundational will have 3. Okay? And the 3 in the foundation will be a biology, an IPC or an advanced course, and then any other advanced course, with chemistry and physics both being advanced, plus a whole list of others. Social studies is a change. Currently, there are 4 credits in all 3 plans. When we move to the foundation, there will be 3 credits. Now, what this is we've got the world history or world geography, whereas now we require both of those courses or a combination of the 2. And at this point, I'm just going to talk to you right now that right now we have no direction from the state as to what the curriculum would look like for that combined class. So this is something that we would be studying between now and soon, actually, but we would be making a recommendation on that before too long as far as the development of that course. Then we have U.S. history and government and economics. So that is a change from what we have currently in any of the other programs. Physical education, there is a 1 credit requirement across the board. At this time, Arlington requires 1.5 credits. So the half credit is something that has been put over and above what has been required that we've had at a local level, and we will talk about that. Languages other than English, right now in the minimum plan there is no requirement, but if you'll look all the way across, there are requirements. And so that means every student will take 2 years of a foreign language. Now, this also, just for your information, can include a computer language. And at this time, we don't know how the universities are going to look at that, but Java is a language, and that's about as far as I can go with the computer languages. Fine arts, and Craig's not here to help me out here. That's what I was thinking. In the fine arts, it's a 1 credit all the way across. Speech, I have speech is currently a requirement, and I am going to let you know that under the foundation, I put it there in green, because at this point, there's not clear direction on that, but I will tell you that in looking at what the State Board of Education put out today, it is listed there, and it's been listed, it's been highly advocated for, so we just really don't know what's going to happen there yet, but we think that that's certainly something that will be made clear very soon. Health, we require it now, 1.5 credit. And in our health courses, we cover many things at the local level that are required by the state. We put some things in that would have to be put in another course if we were to change that. Electives, in the minimum now, there's 7, but we require 2 additional. And we'll talk about that other one in just a minute. So we have 5 credits. Recommended are 3 that we require locally, and 2 for DAP because of the additional ones we have. In the foundational plan, it will be 5. And of course, many of those 5s can be part of an endorsement. We'll talk about those in just a moment. Currently, we require a technology applications credit, and that is not listed in the foundational program. So the total credits, they have been 22 locally. We've had 24 at the minimum level, 26 at the recommended, 26 for DAP, and the foundation is at 22 at this point. Now, endorsements. In those 5 areas, what you have is successful completion in a curriculum that is written out in a sequence of 4 courses. And it can be many different things, but there is a specific list of those courses that will be outlined. You also have to have 4 credits in math, 4 credits in science, and then 2 additional elective credits. So the total for the foundation with endorsements would be 26 credits. It is also 26 credits for distinguished, so they're very parallel. They have a few more requirements and some different, it's really kind of course sequences that would make it different from the endorsement, because you also have to have an endorsement. So this is a little bit of a higher standard. It's also 26 credits. Another thing that will be added for our students is performance acknowledgments. They can be given in dual credit, bilingualism and biliteracy, AP and IB courses, performance on SAT, ACT, PSAT, and plan test, and also for nationally or internationally recognized business or industry certifications or licenses. I did notice today that it's spelled out more clearly than it has been before in the guidance from the State Board of Education. So it has things listed like right now it's 12. If you get 12 college credits through dual credit, that's one of their distinguished. So it will spell out exactly what each one of these would be, what you would need to do to get these listed on your transcript. End of course exams, have gone from 15 down to 5. And we know that they're in the areas of English 1, English 2, Algebra 1, Biology, and U.S. History. Of course, the English is combined with the writing. It does allow substitutions for end-of-course exams, and this is really very important for students that move in from other places. So as our kids take the AP exams and they score well on them, if they're coming in from another, generally those aren't given until after the junior year anyway. When you receive those, but it will help is if somebody's coming in from another area and scores well on those, that then they would not have to go back and retake those end of course exams. So there'll be specific guidance given on all of these as well. So it's AP, IB, your SAT, and then your SAT subject tests, your ACT, and then several other nationally recognized norm reference tests. This is really very beneficial to our students, the ELL exemption, and it's a very complicated system, but generally when students come in, if they come in for 1 day, it counts for a year. Now what it says is they have to be enrolled in U.S. schools for 60 consecutive days. So in talking to Mark Strand, he was very, very pleased to see this, and this is effective this year. Benchmark limitations, and we are working under this right now. We will have 2 benchmarks this year, which meets the law. District may not administer to any students more than 2 benchmark assessments to prepare for a given exam. Some additional information is that parents of special needs may request additional testing if they would like, and that they've put in there that certain tests are excluded from consideration as benchmark tests, but for now we are going with 2 benchmark tests in our district. Advanced courses are something that will be given some extra consideration at the local level, and so that if we partner with our institutes of higher education, we can come up together in partnership with them and with business, labor, and community members, and if we can come up with a math course or a science course or an English language arts course, and as long as we're making it to an advanced level where it prepares our students to enter the university without need of remediation in any way, then we can develop those courses and bring them to you. So that's something that we think is very powerful and that we can look at for innovative courses for our own district and meeting the needs of our kids in our community. College prep course is something that must be done, and this is the districts, we must partner with TCC and or UTA to develop and provide a college prep course in math and ELA to any 12th grade student who we do not feel meets the college readiness standards or whose performance indicates that they're not ready to perform at entry-level college work. This is something that we will be developing this year for institution next year. And we will be working with them on that. The college prep, it can be done online as well as at the high school. And actually, we can also work it to where they can get dual credit for that course, depending on how we design that. We would have to meet regularly with our Institute of Higher Education to partner with them and make sure that it's at the level of rigor that is expected. But it is something that I think will be of benefit to our students as we go through this process. Districts are going to be assigned accountability ratings of A, B, and C to reflect acceptable performance and ratings of D or F to reflect unacceptable performance. And this will start, I believe, in the year 16-17. And we will be getting more guidance on that. This year, though, beginning, we will have campuses that will be rated as we've traditionally done: exemplary, recognized, acceptable, or unacceptable. Each district will perform a self-evaluation, both district and campus, using locally developed criteria for performance in each of these program and specific areas of performance. We've heard about this, and we are actually working with some partners in the TSA, I believe, to help us cull out some ideas to bring before you so that we can look at this. In the areas of fine arts, wellness and physical education, community and parent involvement, 21st century workforce development, second language acquisition, digital learning environment, dropout prevention, and gifted and talented programs. So each of these we will develop some type of rubric for so that we can then do a self-assessment as to where we are and where we want to be. There's also another part of that, and that's a record of the district and campus compliance with statutory reporting and policy requirements. Other requirements, personal graduation plans for all students, 9th grade through 12th grade. Before that has been a recommendation. Now it is we shall do that. We are working with technology right now, Nell Fielding and Chad are working together to see if we can't come up with a wonderful program that will help our counselors on this. But that will be a wonderful opportunity for our students to really keep with their counselors on a yearly basis. It's a device where they can really track their growth and their progress toward their graduation and their college and career readiness path. Of course, we must still provide accelerated instruction each time a student fails an end-of-course exam, but it may be outside the school day as well as inside the school day. There is a limitation on removal from class for tutoring. Districts cannot remove students from class for more than 10% of the time to offer tutoring without written parental consent, and we're looking for exact definitions of what that 10% is right now. So our timeline. In December, we want to bring course recommendations for next year to you. We are waiting. The State Board of Education should have, we hope, by December or January, have the listing of all the courses that are going to be available for endorsements. We also will have a little more clarity around the other areas that we need before we make that hard copy course description book. We're going to be working on that and have that on as an online process. Another thing is in January, we want to come before you to approve the graduation requirements for 2014 and 2015. That will give us a little more time to get a solid recommendation down for you and as we study the implications of House Bill 5. So, any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Mr. Barron.
Thank you, President Hogg. Good evening.
Hi.
Currently, a student can graduate with 22 credits, is that right?
Not in Arlington.
On the minimum plan?
24.
24 on the minimum?
Mm-hmm. In Arlington, it's 24 at the state.
Okay, but as far as the state goes?
22.
22. And that's always been our fallback position at the last minute when things didn't go right. And we offer 32 credits on a standard 4-year plan.
Yes, sir.
Now all these students are going to have to get 26 credits.
Mr. Barron, hold on just a second. Dr. Cavazos.
Just for clarification, it's not, we can't we don't have a fallback to the minimum 22. Our board requires 24 and our district does, so you have to graduate with 24.
But the state requirement was 22.
That's correct, and that's a big, as part of this discussion, a big point that we wanted to make tonight was that we're not necessarily aligned with the state in terms of graduation requirements. We've required more. And so as the state changes the graduation plans and the opportunities for students, I think it's an important consideration for us to decide whether we want to continue to require more or be more aligned with the foundational school program so that students can take advantage of the endorsements. When we require more, that's just fewer opportunities that they have in perhaps an endorsement situation. So that this is a kind of a perfect timing to have those kind of discussions, and by January, hopefully have a recommendation and an approval.
That'll be all now, then. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you, Mr. Maron. Dr. Rush.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One on the, let's see, the possible combination of the world geography and world history. Is there a pre-AP or AP model for that?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of. There is not.
Okay, that's interesting. That would make it quite difficult then to have a competitive course, rigorous. We can create rigor, but nothing that'll matter for kids in their college application
There'll be a lot of
process.
discussion around that course right there,
Yeah, okay.
statewide and here.
Okay. And then with the, on the foundation plan, any advanced science course, IPC or an advanced science course, is it still up in the air? What constitutes advanced? Is it defined if there's going to be a prerequisite for whatever that labeled advanced course would be? Or is that something that we have to be vigilant still in providing testimony to the state board to?
If there is a stated prerequisite currently, then they have to take the prerequisite to the course. So everybody has to take the biology, then they can take IPC if they want, then they can take chemistry or physics, and then they can go on from there. Or they could take AP biology as well, is my understanding. And as far as your question, if there is a prerequisite, they must take the prerequisite. If we come up with a local course, then we would define what that would be.
Well, I'm thinking like our firefighter academy, that's where a lot of this for us came from. And they had, what was it, forensic sciences? And
then the emergency
so
medical.
that's an advanced, obviously an advanced course. Are they going to accept that by itself as the advanced course, or are they going to say that can only come after they complete
Chemistry or
IPC
physics or
biology
whatever.
as well?
We can look at that. What I can tell you is that there will be an extensive list of advanced courses that will be made. And then if we do not see what we want to offer within that course, then we will have the opportunity to develop our own advanced course, as long as we partner with our business community and with one of our institutes of higher education.
Well, that's
Dr. Reich, one real quick addition from Dr.
And,
Seeker.
and so that's part of the state board is struggling with defining advanced. If you define it, imagine that. If you define it traditionally, then it's a sequence of advancement. But if you define it with advanced learning in a certain area, then it doesn't have to follow a sequence. And so they're struggling with that definition of advanced. I think, and when we were down there, I used the example of the firefighter academy, and that's one of advanced learning.
Right.
Doesn't have to have a sequence to do that. And so they seem pretty receptive to that, but they're struggling with it.
Okay. And so one of the concerns that I've had in this whole entire process is, are they going to have a list and we have to stick with that list? But what you're saying is we'll be able to have our own. Now, will that have to go through an approval process from the SBOE, or?
It's a local approval process.
Oh, good. Well, that's good.
That's the community. I think that was a lot of what was pushed through this legislation is the community norms and how you can build those courses at the community level.
And we have to watch that rulemaking. And
Yeah.
that's part of the testimony was that
Yeah.
don't make it cumbersome or don't make it impossible to get a course approved. In fact, here's an example, and that's what we shared with them. Here's an example of a course that we collaborated with the city, with TCC, the Firefighter Academy, and created this course. So that should be enough.
Yeah.
And as
without
long as-
more regulation.
And as long as the standard is that it's rigorous enough that as the kids go to higher education, they are not in any remedial courses, which we don't want them to at all. So they're going in at an entry level or above.
Right. And with using the Firefighter Academy as an example, would that curriculum be afforded any endorsement opportunity? Do you know? I hadn't looked at it close. I was just curious if it did or not, or if it would, but because of some of these that they're still questioning, it'll kick it out, and maybe we need to lobby.
The
that it needs to
endorsements
change.
will be stated by the State Board of Education at this time. So they're going to make a list. And what I know that part of the testimony was for certain that as many choices as possible be within those endorsements.
Okay. Okay.
So,
So for example, some of those endorsements will require 4 sciences. And so our position would be that let the firefighter forensic science or analysis as an example be that 4th science.
could be that advanced
And
course.
give us that option so they can earn their endorsement.
Okay, okay. Let's see, I had one more question. I guess it was about Algebra 2. I was trying to look back through the handouts here. Has it been defined that in order to get any of the endorsements, you've got to go through that Algebra 2, or is that still up in the air? And are we giving Pearson extra dollars, and that's the way through? I'm just putting it out there.
Well, I need to study today's information from State Board of Education out, but most of them all look like they have Algebra 2 in them, unless I am mistaken, and I know Wally was looking at it,
So it's in there. Huh. Is there, but we can still provide
input.
against that, is what I would lobby for. Arts and humanities, I don't see you're the curriculum expert. I don't see the need to have Algebra 2 there as a requirement. I see that as a convenience to pay Pearson a lot more dollars for their tests. I hate to say it, but I'm calling it like I see it.
Well, that
So-
will be something else that we can look at as we go to the State Board in November.
Okay. Yeah, go
Mr.
ahead.
Barrett?
Just because Algebra 2 is required doesn't mean there's going to be an end-of-course test in Algebra 2. There's still only the 5 end-of-course tests. So Pearson's not going to make out with that.
Oh, well, that's a little different, but I still don't think they need it either way.
Well, I do.
Okay, Mr. Math Teacher. Well, and I'll close with, if our governance committee sees fit, maybe that's something that we need to send some letters down or communicate with Patty Hardy, even informally through emails or something, to put it out there before we formally testify.
Well, and one other option that we do have is the option to give end-of-course test just for information on Algebra 2 and English 3 that also could be utilized as a TSI readiness. So we will be looking at that as well, and that's part of House Bill 5.
Okay.
But it's not a requirement.
Thank you. I know it's all evolving. Oh, I guess the final thing, did the commissioner rule that we can have the application of those endorsements or the foundation plan for the kids that are graduating this year?
Yes, they can with
They can do
22 and a half credit graduation,
Okay.
as long as they meet that standard.
And are we doing anything proactively on our behalf to the students that might have that opportunity, to communicate to them that they do have that opportunity?
I think that Nell is here, but see if I can speak, and then she can come up if I don't get this right. I know that I know that they're looking at that by individual student as what is best for each individual
Yeah.
student as they graduate.
Yeah.
So the counselors that have those seniors, as they're preparing right now, they are looking at their coursework for the year to find out what the best route would be. Also, with the foundational plan, you are eligible to apply for a four-year college, whereas before on the minimum, you were not.
Right. Okay.
Is that right? Absolutely. We have more required than the foundation, so it would be 24 and a half credits.
Sure.
And again, that's something that we need to spend some time, and by January, hopefully decide whether we want to continue to require those extra credits for graduation. And just to set a context, it's not to lower standards, but it's to continue to provide those opportunities for students. So, you know, if we continue to require extra credits for graduation, that's just fewer that they have in terms of potential endorsements.
Yeah, and in thinking through this process, I know that the intent of everybody that was pushing to try to give the students graduating this year that opportunity was to give them leverage in getting into college. But I'm thinking, as a parent of a graduating senior, those college applications are due November 1, December 1, latest January, pretty much. So how is that going to be a benefit? Because they're not going to be able to really include that at that point in time. So are we really trying a lot for naught, or don't know?
Well, I think that they are looking at those with the students now, so that they do have that opportunity, because for those students, yeah, Neil may want to come up here, but for those students who can go with the foundation, who might want to apply to a four-year Institute of Higher Learning, then they would have that opportunity. We definitely want to advocate on the side of our students.
Currently, what counselors are looking at, the foundations would kind of be a default if they did not meet recommended. Because recommended does prepare you for college. So if they came along, it's their fourth year in physics, and they fail a semester, they automatically would go to minimum plan. Even though they had the 2 years of foreign language, they had 4 maths. So if they went to foundations, it's a better representation of what they've been doing, rather than going all the way to minimum. So those decisions can be made second semester. They don't have to be made today.
And just for clarification, now, we're not talking about the endorsements at this point.
There is no endorsement.
That's correct.
They can only do the foundations.
That's what the commissioner ruled on.
Plan.
Just for clarification.
Yeah, not for the endorsements. Okay. Okay. Well, we look forward to updates. This is,
So do we.
yeah, a lengthy process. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Reich. Mr. Hibbs.
Ms. Smith, a number of my questions were already answered beforehand. I've just got one. We will go with 2 benchmarks.
Yes, sir.
That's what you were saying. And obviously, the state requirements has been dramatically cut. How does the 2 benchmarks this year compare to what we were doing prior years? How many benchmarking were we doing?
I think we were doing 3 before, and Wally's here, and he can.
No,
Yeah.
no more than 3,
No more than 3.
right,
Okay.
Wally?
So not only did the state reduce it, we've also
Yes, we
reduced
have.
it. So teachers are all happy, right? There we go. Okay, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Mr. Barron, your lights beeping.
Yeah, I had it on.
You already got, oh,
Yeah.
go ahead, Mr. Barron.
Thank you. Let me go with the benchmarks then. We were benchmarking in all 4 core courses, weren't we? So in
Yes.
fact, we were doing just a pile of benchmarks. Now, are we still benchmarking all the core courses, or only the ones that have end-of-course tests?
Wally, would you like to come?
For high school,
Yeah,
only those that are linked with end of course. It's not the same with 3 through 8.
Okay, so 3 through 8 is just going to fall back to the 2 benchmarks?
It's still 2, but there are some tests that are given that are not linked with a particular state assessment.
Give an
6th grade
example.
6th grade science, as an example, 7th grade science.
So, but we're still benchmarking those?
Yes,
All right, but at the high school level, then the number of benchmarks has gone down quite a bit?
yes.
But we're still doing it, do we call it a campus assessment and not a benchmark?
Curriculum assessments.
Curriculum assessment? And
Because
that is in all the core?
distinction, the real distinction between the 2, benchmarks were like full tests, whether or not you covered things. And that's why they were sort of benchmarking in that way. You could see the growth going over time. It was a position of this district for quite some time to abandon that, because whereas it might serve the idea of looking at progress over time, it wasn't good for kids taking the test itself, because a huge amount of items would be in areas that they didn't cover up to that point. The curriculum assessments are supposed to be only on what was covered.
So we are still doing curriculum assessments?
Yes, but two.
Only two?
Only two.
Right, the state, the HB5 calls them benchmarks.
Yeah.
And that's a confusion, I think. And so we call them curriculum assessments because they're more about our curriculum. But we have implemented the rule to our curriculum assessments. So we limit it to two.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Carter. I guess I have a concern about the fact that we're not requiring a technology credit anymore. Or are we?
We still are. The state's
That's
At that
still in
point-
The foundation program doesn't. And the
Right,
minimum.
foundation program
The
doesn't.
minimum plan from the state doesn't, right?
Right, that's exactly
we do.
right.
I know
We do.
that years ago when they did this to us, we, the district, said we still want it.
Well, that's one of the 2 credits that are added to each of the programs.
Okay. So when we add in all the mandatory things, how many electives do the students still have now to get to the 32?
Well, depending on which program they're on.
From our foundation plan,
From our foundation plan as of,
the one that's going to be proposed here at some future time.
well, and we're going to be studying that to make the recommendation on which ones to add back in. If we take it as the state has it, it's 22 at this point. If we had it where we had those 2 extra credits built in, then it would be 24 for the
So
foundation.
the students would still get 6 or 8
Yeah.
electives.
And if, Evan, I don't know if we can put that slide back up there. There's a summary that I think would be helpful, just to clarify this issue. And if the one where it totals them out at the end.
Well, here are the foundation against the minimum, the recommended, and the DAP, as we have here.
So we require half credit of health.
Half credit of health, 1 technology, and then a half of PE.
That's correct. So now go to the elective, where it totals the electives.
The electives are in the middle right there.
But there's a summary on one of those slides.
Of the electives?
Yes.
It's not that middle one right there?
No. Keep going. Okay, it might have gone up.
But anyway, the electives that we have right now are 5, 3, and 2. And of course, then they have additional ones that they can take up to the 32.
So I guess the concern will be, once we stabilize it, whatever we're going to require,
That's correct.
how many extra credits will there be that a student can work on their endorsement? Or will that be buried in the mandatory?
What is buried in the mandatory is 26 credits to get to an endorsement.
That's correct.
And that's to get to 1 endorsement. So those students would still have an additional 6 if we did not put any other requirements in there. Now, of course, they could get more than 1 endorsement, which would mean that they would certainly take more courses toward that. The same with the distinguished will be 26 as well, as far as what the state has. So they would still also have the 6 extra credits.
I just don't want to force us into the position where programs lose participation, the ROTC.
Absolutely.
Things that would count as an elective but would not count towards the foundation plan or an endorsement.
That's correct. And one of the things to consider here also, and without getting too much into the details necessarily, but some of our courses are double blocked. And so when we say we have 32 credit opportunities, when you start looking at that, you really don't, right? And so as we expand our career certification programs, I'll give you examples with HVAC and welding, a lot of those are double blocked so that the students can meet the dual credit requirements and things like that. So it really pares down the total number of credits. And when you look at the elective possibilities for students, And just looking at that one, you know, we have 5.5 when the minimum could have up to 7. But forget that for just a second. So 5 credits in the foundation is what we want to, you know, kind of think about. So while we say, well, yes, 32 credit opportunities in some cases, or many cases, things are double blocked, and that's not really 32 credit opportunities.
Yeah. So it's going to require a lot of careful study.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Rush?
So, moving to the new system, then, there's kids now that are graduating distinguished, that those same kids, if they were graduating in the future on the new plan, wouldn't necessarily qualify for an endorsement, and they just default to the foundation just like everybody else.
Because
Right.
the distinguished will have to have an endorsement.
Right, right,
So they'll have to have a
Huh.
course sequence within one of those 5 endorsement areas.
okay. Okay, that'd be interesting to see how this plays. Okay.
This is going to be critical. It's going to require a lot of guidance from our guidance counselors, and that's something that we'll really be looking at that system and making recommendations for.
Dr. C?
And if I could just add one more comment, this continues to reinforce the importance of our 8th grade CTHEI course, because as these requirements continue to change, this year in particular, this is where the students, the 8th grade students, are receiving the information about their high school and what they can expect. This is where the parents are receiving that information. And so it's critical, because these changes, the endorsements that come, that we cover them early with our students, and 8th grade is a ideal time.
Hopefully, we'll know what to tell them. I think we're all a little, there's still a lot up in the air. Ms. Sullins?
Thank you. When you're talking about the 8th grade course and the graduation plans, it makes me realize that we may have a strain on guidance counseling in the district as a result, because I know that they're pretty booked right now with testing and scheduling and the guidance counseling they're doing. So this would increase the number of student hours with the guidance counselors, which is consistent with our strategic plan. We thought that would be that's very valuable. So as we're moving through this and thinking about what kind of investments we will need to make, I think guidance counseling is going to be a likely one.
Absolutely. Something for us to look at and for us to study the implications of House Bill 5 on.
And I would add that even beyond House Bill 5, when we have our community dialogues that we just had, and we look to the future of the types of programs we want our students to engage in and the type of experiences we want them to have, a lot of that hinges on the proper guidance and counseling so that students understand the programs and understand the expectations, but have the information and also have the guidance. Probably more important than that is the guidance to continue in these programs and what it means for their future. So there are a lot of pieces here that are connected, and you're right, they hinge on quality guidance and counseling.
And it comes pretty fast since our budgeting cycle is about to begin, you know. So I was sitting here when thinking about the number of new requirements. Some things have reduced, but some other things have added. I wonder at the end of the day, and I know it's probably way too early to know right now, what the unfunded mandate price tag will be on House Bill 5.
And
Give us a number, Dr.
Well, I
Cavazos.
don't have a number. I was just going to add to the. I was just going to add
You
to the
don't?
complexity.
No.
No number. It would be way premature. But I add to the complexity that you're speaking of, Ms. Sullins, is that even with staffing decisions, as early as this spring, they're dependent on what we're requiring students to take in the future, and what kind of teachers, what certification we're asking, and things like that. And back to our facility assessment, the same thing with our development of new programs and things like that. They have huge staffing implications as well.
Thank you, Ms. Sullins. Dr. Rush?
Yeah, just one more thing. First, HB5 is a great plus and a positive direction forward. I don't think we want to venture into that, tagging it with unfunded mandate question just yet.
just making sure that we prepare, for,
Oh, yeah,
in the
absolutely.
budget
Absolutely.
cycle, so.
Yeah, I definitely want to still sing praises for this thing happening. With that said, are there any identified, just loud red flags that are very alarming to you, to us as a district, that our committee is, that needs to work on or address with the SBOE or the commissioner, or anything that our consultants have provided us at this point moving forward? I just want to make sure that we, just like through legislative session, we are as proactive and in their face as possible. Simply said.
It's basically the testimony we provided, which is give us the local control to identify those advanced classes, number one. Don't make it too, cumbersome and impossible to get them approved. And then be clear as to advanced and what it means and options for students.
Yeah. Do you share the concern as far as the Algebra 2 requirement as an example for that arts and humanities endorsement? Is that something that we should do? That might be something to check with the consultants on. I don't know if there's will to do that in Austin or not. That's just one example that I'm coming up with. Those are the things that I want to know if there's a priority list that we should be addressing on the front end instead of being reactionary on the back end.
Well, one thing we'll do for sure is take the guidance today and read through that with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that we look at the resources we have and line them up to that and then make some recommendations.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Barron.
Thank you, President Hogg. One of the things that strikes me is that the top 10% kids, if this all takes effect next school year, is that right? Mm-hmm. Then they've really got to be on top of it as far as getting their ducks in a row going into the next school year to make sure that they still are in that top 10% and they graduate in the right place.
Is that? Yeah, it's not next year's, it's 2000. It's the ones, it's the kids that will be freshmen next year.
High school doesn't count.
So it's not going to jump in next year?
No, not next year.
Next year's ninth grade class is the
Right,
first year
is the
that
first year
starts.
that we'll have
So when we start to say it starts next year, really
It's going to be your
starts with next year's
graduation
Right,
class
next
of
year's ninth grade.
2018.
Will.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Ms. Smith, I got a couple of pieces. On the benchmarks, I'm glad we're down to 3 to 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think we also have to, Ms. Solinston, in response to yours, move more towards our guidance counselors not administering all the testing, and so they can get back to counseling. Before I'm going to look at any others, I want to make sure they're counseling and not test administrators, because I don't think that's a good use of their time. And I think our teachers are benchmarking every single day. So luckily the state can't stop that. I'm not a big fan of benchmark tests. I know you like them. I understand it. I'm glad we're down to 2. On the 22 versus 24, we're definitely going to need some more explanations of that, because my first response is 22, we're lowering expectations, is my first reaction towards that. So if there's some way, as AISD has, 22 for those that, as Ms. Felding said, that fail physics and you're having to retake it, now we're just trying to get you graduated and get that focus and get you out of there. Sometimes I got to take those endorsements and say, okay, let's just get to the long term, your goal, because now your goal is to graduate, because if you don't graduate on time, there's many more risks you're facing. And so I think we have some expectations of our recommendations of what we'd like, but I also don't want us limiting some of our students on what we're taking. So I'll be happy to hear that coming back. On the English language learners, Ms. Smith, it says, I love the 60-day rule. I thought on English language learners, if they were brand new to the country, didn't they extend it where we have 2 years before they count on our test?
That if they're here for 1 day of 1 year, it counts as a year.
So that counts as, okay, so that's where it is. It counts as a year. So now they have to be here 60 days
60 consecutive days.
before the testing, is that right?
Just 60
During
days.
a school year.
Right, for that to count as their first year.
Okay. So if they're here 60 days before our actual end-of-course exam or a benchmark test, that would count for 1 year.
60 days before?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
But if they're 59 days or anything like that, they wouldn't count for that year, and then they're still given 2 years
Yes.
before they officially count as part of our test scores. Okay. In most recommendations is usually 3 years, but the state only gives us 2 years. Dr. Carter?
Come up in.
I'm looking because I've had many discussions about some of our foreign students that come in from Africa and all kinds of locations that
Yes, and the
don't
problem,
speak English.
Yeah, when it comes to the thing about accountability, and we're trying to still get the thing, it was about the 2 or 3 years before they're part of accountability. The 60 days thing, consecutive days, just means that will regard being a year as part of that, whatever the number of years that you're in U.S. schools, for you now to be part of the testing and accountability. I'm not sure exactly how it applies for the student who is new to our country, 60 days, and then they take the EOC. That would be a disconnect, quite frankly, that it's almost accountable for them, but for the system, there's not the accountability. So, but I don't think that that's what it is, that all at once they have the same accountability.
Okay.
60 days for somebody coming into the brand new country.
I think that's a concern because I know Mark Strand and our Newcomer Center has some real concerns over that.
Yeah. It's only about, this is what constitutes a year, whereas before, just 1 day constituted a year. But then there's a number of years you had to be in order to have to be eligible to take a test.
And I think the number of years is 2 years, if I remember.
I think it was 2 years.
And some of
Two full years now.
The national and state recommendations have been 3 to 4, and the state's given us 2 years.
3 is much better.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Carr, for that little bit of a clarification. I think that's one of those pieces we need to still make sure we work through on that 6th day. One last piece I have on the accountability section, Ms. Smith, it talks about a self-evaluation. Is any of this, no one likes to recreate the wheel, is any of that going to be able to relate directly to our strategic plan and how we're measuring so that we're already doing that and that directly relates back to the self-evaluation?
I hope that we can tie it to it pretty strongly. And we'll be working with the Texas School Alliance as well as others in developing
I think we need to really be out front pushing some of our measurements so that we've already created it. We know what we're getting judged on, because my concern always with the state is you don't want to be judged and then it changes 2 years from now, and every 2 years it's changing. So if we can create that and move forward with that. Mr. Barron.
Well, when I first read that, I thought that was talking about our strategic
I
plan.
agree.
It looks so much aligned with what we're already doing.
That's why I'm saying
Yeah.
our measurements,
And
that
these
would
would
be a
be
great
our
piece
very
for us
own
to-
self-evaluation as well. So we would develop that for us. We would just work with others.
that's a great piece for all 8 of us up here and all of our teachers and everyone to really poke and prod our State Board of Education, our commissioner who's from Arlington of Education, and all of our legislators to make those phone calls also. And on that last piece, Dr. Rice, you'd mentioned it. I think, Dr. Vasso, send out your talk, make sure the talking points are sent out to the board. On Monday, we actually have an event with the Education Commissioner here in Arlington, the Young Professionals, hosted by the Chamber, that will have our Education Commissioner speaking to that group. And then also on Monday evening, we have Diane Patrick's Education Summit, and I will be introducing Pat Hardy, our State Board of Education member. And so it may be a good idea if our legislative committee wants to meet with Pat before that. It'd be a perfect time to set that up and really poke and prod Pat Hardy, our State Board of Education representative. I definitely will bring it up. So make sure those talking points are out, and we may want to connect with our legislative committee to see if they want to schedule a meeting with her, or possibly maybe get a little more with the Education Commissioner. But I think Pat's a critical one on that right there.
Absolutely, and we've posted our full testimony to State Board online on our website.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Smith. That's all we have. We look forward to January figuring out exactly how we're doing this. And keep monitoring. I thank the staff for monitoring, because things can become a bill, but then how they're actually enacted and made into law is maybe more important than the law has created itself. Next, we'll move on to discussion item D, communications update. Dr. Vassos.
Thank you, President Hogg, and we want to take this opportunity at this work session to provide the board an update on our communications plan and our communication efforts, both internal and external communication efforts. So Leslie Johnson, our communications director, will provide that update and be happy to answer any questions at the end of her presentation. Leslie.
So why a new communications plan? With the year of positive changes we had last year with our first year of the Achieve Today, Excel Tomorrow strategic plan, we want to capitalize on that growing momentum. So we've been working on a new communications plan. The plan is designed to consistently brand the district, increase awareness among all stakeholders of the district's good news items, increase the number of students attending the AISD from private and charter schools and other area districts, improve the rating of the employee responses on question 14 of the employee survey, which is, if given a choice, I would recommend that a parent select this district for his or her child. Continue positive response and buy-in of the strategic plan and inform stakeholders of the district's capital needs planning process. So we have several goals and strategies, and this first goal and 3 strategies are actually taken from the strategic plan. So it's the AISD will utilize all communications channels to maximize awareness and support of the district's vision to be globally acknowledged as a premier school district. And the first strategy is effectively communicate and engage stakeholders of staff, students, parents, and community in the district's strategic planning process. Market and promote through effective public relations what sets the AISD apart from other educational institutions, be they public or private, and engage our internal stakeholders as advocates for the district's vision. Our second goal is related to branding and promotion. So the AISD will consistently brand and promote the district. We'll utilize key messages and talking points to establish one voice throughout all communications channels, including the rollout of new initiatives and programs and the development of fact sheets. Maintain a proactive media relations program to enhance the district's image on the local, state, and national levels, and utilize effective operational practices to provide increased efficiency and quality printed materials. And then our last goal is the AISD will educate stakeholders on the capital needs planning process, the resulting facilities master plan, and the related funding options. So this is ongoing now, and some of the pieces were not there yet, but we will effectively communicate the district's capital needs planning process, educate stakeholders about the facilities master plan once it's completed in early February, and then inform stakeholders regarding funding options for priority capital needs as those decisions are made. So next steps, we are working on an RFP for a communications audit, an outside audit firm. It's very similar to the curriculum audit that we undertook. A group would come in, audit all of our materials, do focus groups, surveys. It's very similar. It's a very in-depth process and give us a lot of strong recommendations for how to improve. We'll develop a marketing plan and then continue to implement staff communications trainings and effectively contract communications initiatives as appropriate. We work with Brandera Communications currently, and we also have some contract writing positions, and we'll continue to use those as appropriate. Any questions?
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Any questions from board members? Ms. Hollins.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for your presentation this evening. The RFQ for the communication, that's something that sounds interesting. What's the timeline on that?
We are finalizing the RFPQ. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
One of those.
Yep.
I have to look every time. We're finalizing that now, and so we'll get that sent out in the next week or so, and then we'll review those proposals and conduct interviews, and we hope to bring someone back soon. And then it takes about 12 weeks to complete the process.
Okay.
We send them, just like the curriculum audit, we send them all of our materials, and we're working to gather those, and then they come for several days to the district and conduct those interviews and focus groups.
Do they look at the communications at the district level or also at the campus levels?
They will look at both. It's mainly focused on district level, but they'll look at what the schools are doing as well and provide some recommendations there.
And that'll become foundational for the new marketing
yes.
plan and so, okay. Well, excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Johnson, I got a question and maybe just a little more of a recommendation as a plan comes up. I'd like to see as we brand and do some of these pieces, how they're relating back to our long-term achievements. So as we achieve PR in certain Tier 1 and Tier 2 press releases and notifications, Star Telegram articles versus state board articles versus a local blog, some of those measurements so that we can see exactly how we're achieving and what we're achieving success on, so that it can then directly relate, find correlations to student achievement, also correlations to one of the pieces of increase our numbers for kids. And some of that's from some tracking and some things. And sometimes I know marketing can be tough to judge. And so I just think as we start moving forward and having some of those and realize that we are in much more of a competitive market than what schools have traditionally been in, I think we're going to have to make sure we have some of those balances and some of those performance standards that we have, so that when we do come to the decision of, do we need to allocate more money, do we need to put more of an emphasis, we have some hard facts and data to show our results.
One of the items I'm currently working on is a better media tracking, and it'll track social media as well, and it helps us evaluate and will provide a great deal of reporting capabilities, and so we're looking into that right now.
And I think there's so many different ways of where it's coming, because schools are on a grassroots level. So we've got two different kind of strategies, the grassroots and the other piece. But I think we're moving in the right direction. It's sometimes very difficult and good to track, but there is ways to do it very successfully. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. We'll move on to discussion item E, 2013-14 District and Campus Improvement Plans. Dr. C.
Thank you, President Hogg. This evening, we'd like to give you an update on the district and campus improvement planning efforts. And you're going to hear from Dr. Carter, you're going to hear from the area superintendents, you're going to hear from some principals about their experiences with our campus improvement process. And I think before they even begin, and I see them assembling, but before they begin, I'd like to thank the campuses, the staff at the schools, the principals, our area superintendents, Dr. Carter and Evan, et cetera, for their work on this process, because it has been a process for improvement. And we know that clear goals and clear performance objectives truly do move performance. And so tonight, that's part of this demonstration. It continues to be a work in progress, and we'll bring them back for adoption in November. But Dr. Carter.
President Hogg, Vice President Sullins, members of the board, Superintendent Cavazos. Yes, indeed, it has been a major project, and I would say a lot of these folks are not just reformers, they're transformers, because it was a transformation from what the improvement planning process has been in the past, and even with the new software that we have, it has been transforming thinking, the way to go about the whole thing of planning and identifying needs, and then almost strategically. These are like strategic plans for 1 year. And so that's been the thinking that has been put into place for it. So yes, I want to review the district improvement plans, and then the area superintendents will go over the campus improvement plans. Under board policy again, I'm just going to whisk through this pretty fast. We went through this before with you previously about the general improvement planning process. Under BQ legal, that's where the board is to give an approval for the district and campus performance objectives, and to ensure that there's a mutually supportive identified objectives between the district and the campus plans, and a minimum support also with the state goals. Inherently, by the goals that we're addressing, we're addressing also state goals. Purpose of the DIP and the CIP: systematic approach to continuous improvement, and being systematic, even just the harmony between district and campus is a touch improvement over previous planning process that we have. So that just renders much more of a systematic approach. It aligns campus goals with district goals very specifically. Aligns campus and district efforts with the strategic plan, because there's been a lot of collaboration about what we're doing with the district process for planning and then what is going on for the campus. And even just having the same software, again, is one of those things that sort of helps to integrate some of this. Encourages examination of data to establish the priorities. Provides focused direction. Identifies targets and outlines interventions. complies with state statutes. And then we have our 3 goals specifically required. We went over this before. The on track to graduation, percent of tests passed, and the learning environment. I want to make mention about the on track to graduation. What that means in particular, and why it involves all grade levels, is that for no matter what the grade level is, there's a certain level of standards that have to be met, and for the students to be on track, proceeding through their career and education all the way to being their senior year, are they on track to graduate not only on time, but with career and college readiness. The other goals, state or Title I requirements, are to be considered. We have the required additional, actually there are 2 required additional goals that are to be given by the campuses, unless the area superintendent indicates that they feel that the 3 goals are sufficient to have a lot of focus for particular schools, and that especially if they're just needing to have that focus and a lot of the energies and whatnot of resources on the 3 goals might be sufficient for marked improvement. Also, the optional additional goal that doesn't have to relate directly to the strategic plan, but just might be a particular need that any particular campus might have. And of course, no matter what, it is going to be connected to the strategic plan in some way. Performance objectives under Goal 1 for the on track to graduation. We went over these last time, so again, real fast. Just address the areas of greatest need, and there are also the potential areas. This whole list covers all those potential areas that could be addressed under this particular goal. With Goal 2, the percent of tests passed, that is addressing Index 1. That is just exactly what it says, percent of all the tests that are passed. The performance objectives, again, address the areas with greatest need. It is based on the Phase 1 Level 2 STAR performance. The particular addition was to have at least one performance objective that addresses the percent meeting recommended Level 2. That is the final recommended level, which is a much higher standard and just shades below the advanced level. And of course, address all deficiencies in the system safeguards. One of the things I want to point out is that when it comes to the district improvement plan, one of the decisions was made of we won't necessarily have a performance objective with each deficiency, but there will be a very specific strategy to address the deficiency under the system safeguards. And those system safeguards, it is these particular targets. With all performance results for all the different student groups, they had to get at least 50% performance success. The participation results had to be at least 95%, and that is synonymous with how it is with the AYP. With the graduation rates, again, this is very much along with the AYP as well. 78% graduation rate for 4-year, 83% graduation rate for the 5-year. Performance objectives for the Goal 3, learning environment. We have the performance objectives that it's to increase the employee engagement according to the Studer survey results and increase parent satisfaction according to the Studer survey results. So those 2 major surveys were the main areas that sort of give us a gauge as to how we're doing in terms of a learning environment. In addition, you have the senior exit survey results at the high school level. And then one performance objective has to address safety and security. It's either here or have it as another goal entirely. The district planning process, we had the DIP training on the Plan for Learning, that is the software, and that was concurrent with the CIP training with the principals and with the area superintendents. Collaboration was between the curriculum and instruction and the accountability, planning, and testing departments in order to develop the draft of the plan. Then it was proposed to the DIDC, this draft of the plan, and they made whatever revisions, and thank goodness we did it because they found a little error on it, and that error was corrected before it was recommended before the board tonight. And then the DIP, all in its entirety with needs assessments, the strategies and everything, supposed to be completed by October 28th. The district goals and performance objectives themselves, I just want to go over briefly. You have the entire list of all the goals and the objectives, but just to give some indication of sampling of what this is. With the on-track, of course, we have it with the percent of students on track to graduation going from 46 to 48%. It's 2 percentage point increase. Performance objectives, 2 examples. One is on the kindergarten students on grade level for the EOY report card, meeting standards in language arts, going from 38% to 50%. Another performance objective is with grade 1, the students performing on grade level in reading, and that is mostly with the DRA, going from 60% to 70%. You might notice that with the entire listing for the district, it seems to be confined to the grades 1, kinder, first, and second grades. And that is mostly because the rest of the grades are sort of being taken care of in Goal 2 with the STAR results. And the greatest need was definitely in the lower grades, kinder, first, and second. Now with Goal 2, the percent of tests passed to increase from 75% to 78%. Again, that was Index 1 under the accountability system. With 2 examples here of the performance objectives. With the STAR writing in grade 4, the students' performance would go from 48% to 75%. And with the, for the final recommended standard on all tests, going from 33% to 38%. With the learning environment, increase employee engagement and parent satisfaction according to established targets. And we'll explain that in just a moment here. But in terms of the performance objectives, we have increased the overall average on the employee engagement survey going from 3.8 out of 5 to 3.9 by the end of the school year. Increased the overall average on the parent satisfaction survey from 4.22 out of 5 to 4.27 by the end of the school year. Now, where did we get these established targets? You may not be able to see that too well, but it's a, this is what was given by the Studer Education Group, that if you have this sort of baseline, these should be the improvements you should be looking for. So those were sort of standardized improvements that we did combine ourselves both in the district and for the campuses. The additional goal for the district, safe, secure, and respectful environment. Increase the percent of graduating seniors. This is all sort of being gauged by how the seniors have indicated whether or not the schools have been safe, secure, and respectful, going from a 62% to a 67%. You may recall these numbers, maybe recall them, from the Gibson report when they provided that report on the senior exit survey. Performance objectives to accomplish that. It's on a different kind of scale because when it came down to the individual pieces, that was strictly based on averages rather than on percents. But if you increase the averages, you're going to increase the percentages. Increase the average response by the graduating seniors survey regarding school safety, going from 2.59 to 2.7. Increase the average response in the graduating seniors survey regarding student respect, going from 2.34 to 2.45. Interesting. PSAT, college readiness, is our 5th goal, and I think you had a little bit of a briefing regarding a scorecard that addresses this, and this is part of the efforts to bring some alignment with strategic plan, district plan, and the scorecard. With PSAT college readiness, increase the percent of sophomore students meeting overall college readiness standard on the PSAT from 33% to 36%. Let's just go ahead and get all those, both of them out there. For the objectives, 2 examples. On the PSAT mathematics, the performance going from 43% to 48% for college readiness, and with the PSAT writing going from 40 to 46%. And college readiness is set by the College Board for the PSAT. And these are just for the sophomores. And one of the things about that is, and why we use this in particular, not the juniors, is the juniors can fluctuate because it's self-determined as to whether or not they're going to take it. But it's all of our sophomores. So that's a better gauge to see whether or not there's been some improvement, because it's not just about self-selection as to who's taking the test or not. So gauging that as far as improvement is a good register about college readiness. And just to let you know that there are 2 different college readiness standards, one for sophomores, which is lower than it is for the junior. And now for the campus improvement plans, I will hand it over to Dr. Wirtz. He will represent the area superintendents regarding the process they had for the campus improvement plans.
President Hogg, School Board, and Dr. Cavazos, thank you for letting us be here tonight. I'm representing the area superintendents to let you know what our interaction has been with the principals and the design of their campus improvement plans. I think what Dr. Carter indicated earlier as far as the word transformation is really the best word to describe what we've been going through as far as campus improvement plans. We've really been working to reshape the way plans are used so that they're a workable document, almost like a small strategic plan at the campus level to really drive improvement for students at the campus level in alignment with what we're trying to accomplish here at the district level. So the slide you see before you is going to kind of outline each of the different components, and I'm going to go ahead and show all components, and then I'll just talk to you briefly about each of the steps that we took with principals. As Dr. Carter indicated earlier, the first thing that principals had access to this year was the new Plan for Learning platform, which is actually a very user-friendly platform, but we needed to let principals have an opportunity to interact with it. So they were provided multiple work sessions with the Plan for Learning organization and Dr. Carter's department, along with the area superintendents, to give some hands-on, one-on-one type of training so they can begin to learn how to apply, write the plan within the system itself. Principals were intentionally paced at a very slow pace when it comes to the development of their campus improvement plan. We did this intentionally so that we could increase the quality of the plans and their outcomes. And we asked principals initially to begin focusing on performance objectives and goals. We wanted to work on performance objectives that were going to intentionally stretch our campuses to really try to increase the quality and actually the performance of students at the campus level. One thing that Dr. Carter mentioned earlier is with regards to the indexes that we have now with the state accountability system. And in order to move those indexes for any significant amount, you have to increase the amount of performance that's happening within each of the individual subgroups at the schools. So we've asked principals and worked with them to really stretch themselves as far as their performance objectives go, to really try to bolster up the type of performance that's actually taking place at the campus level. Some of our focuses when principals were developing these targets were around the critical needs that they identified when they conducted their needs assessment, and also to address, as Dr. Carter mentioned, the achievement gaps that exist between student populations and any safeguards that the campus happened to miss last year during the testing cycle. Some of the systems, just so that you know that the area superintendents are working currently with principals, we are working with principals on a daily basis to actually develop data management systems on campus to monitor students' progress longitudinally over the course of the entire school year. We are intentionally identifying where current students currently are, and then identifying where they should be at least a year from now, regardless of where their starting point is. So let's say, for example, a student walks into, and I'll speak in elementary terms, into first grade reading on grade level, then we would look for at least a whole grade level's worth of growth for reading. And if they come in above grade level, we're still looking for another year's worth of growth, so they would end up being above grade level. So our goal is to intentionally work with principals to help promote students' learning so that it's accelerated regardless of where their starting point is, and to identify targets that will measure the pacing of that student along the way so we can make sure they get to their goal along the way, by the end of the school year. Some professional development that we've provided to principals have been in the form of workshops, and we call them workshops because it really is that. They bring their plans with them, they open their computers, we sit side by side with them, and we literally work the plan with them. They'll write their goal, and we'll counsel with them about the way that it's written, whether it's really measurable or not measurable, if it's really going to reach the outcome that they're intending. Is the performance objective really aligned with what the goal is actually saying they're trying to accomplish? At the secondary level, this was provided in level meetings, simply because there's a smaller number of campuses, so you could do it in a small group. Because we have 52 elementary schools, we conducted them actually in multiple after-school sessions at various sites, and we tried to provide, secondary and elementary tried to provide opportunities for principals to have multiple opportunities so that they would be able to accommodate their schedule, since I know everybody's busy. He's very interested in our topic tonight too, apparently. Let's see here. So these sessions were intended to be very individualized and hands-on. We also provided principals with training on data analysis and how to design questions to identify what the core root causes are that students were not performing on a campus. So when they conduct their needs assessment, they would not only know that math was a problem, for example, but they would be able to identify specifically what is causing that problem, so that later on they'll be able to write a strategy that, or identify a strategy that will address that specific problem, so we can work towards improvement. They're currently in the process of developing strategies, and our training now is really about that, how to write strategies that are directly aligned to the needs that they identify as to why students are not performing in certain areas, and then to develop measurable targets or measurable evidence that they can use to determine whether the strategy is actually being implemented with fidelity. Right now, the area superintendents, we've reviewed all the CIPs. I think I can speak for all of us that we've probably read them all 3 or 4 times each. And that's been really good for us because it's helped us to really understand kind of where each of the campuses are. Each principal received very specific feedback about their CIP, and the principals used the feedback to refine their CIP. We would go back in and reread them again and call them and sit with them and give them more feedback until they got to the place where you currently see them right now. They're in the process of developing strategies right now, and those strategies will begin being reviewed by the area superintendent starting Monday over the course of next week, and the final CIPs will be ready for your review on October 28th. So that's kind of where we are. We've invited Dr. Larry Harmon from Lamar High School to share with you a little bit about the process that the secondary high school principals have been going through, and then he'll be followed by Ben Boland from Ferguson about middle school, and then Nicole Turnipseed from Piercy will share with you her process from the elementary point of view. So Dr. Harmon.
Hi, good evening, President Hogg, members of the board, and Dr. Cavazos. I've been asked to discuss, in particular, goal number 3, which deals with learning environment. Dr. Carter said earlier that the anchor for this particular goal is based upon our 2 Studer surveys for the high school, also the Gibson survey of our parents. And so at each of the campuses for the employee engagement survey, we looked at, from the Likert scale range of 1 to 5, we looked at the 15 statements that were lowest in our leadership capacity according to the staff. And then with the staff in the spring of last academic year, we involved them in a process of determining an improvement plan for each of those 2. At Lamar High School, you see that our average or our mean across those 15 statements was 3.2, and based upon the recommendation of Studer, we're aiming for a 4.0, again out of 5, across those 15 statements. So the process was collaborative with the staff. The staff recommendations based upon those lowest 2 were then submitted to our site-based team, and the site-based team then made some further recommendations before they made our campus improvement plan. The second element of this also is the student survey regarding parent satisfaction. In the case of Lamar High School, again, we had a mean of 3.5 across the statements that were rated, and our goal is to increase that to a 4.0 while doubling the number of parents who are answering the survey. We had about 8% of our parents, 240, complete the survey during the window, and while that's about the same response rate across all 6 high schools, we want to double that. So in talking with the site-based and our staff, we want to intentionally, one of our strategies to kind of drill down is that we want to intentionally plan high participation events at the campus where we can have the survey distributed while they're watching or before they're watching, for example, a student presentation at the high school. So we want to improve and also while doubling the response rate from our parents. And as far as the Gibson survey with our graduating seniors, we had about an 85% participation rate. It was done in school. And what we focused on as a site-based team is the elements that the students gave that are most directly to align with the goals and the mission of the district, especially the rigorous and the innovative and the relevant and engaging element of the curriculum. And so specifically, students gave ratings for each of the core academic areas, the 4 core academic areas, as to whether they were engaging and relevant to them across their years of experience at, in this case, Lamar High School. We had a 60% rate aggregate across the 4, and we want a 75%. So our task right now is to develop strategies with our staff to make sure that we meet that goal, and that we're targeting all students, not just the current graduating class for 2014. We also had an opportunity as a campus to include student safety as part of this goal. We elected to use that as a separate goal with separate strategies, but you'll see a little bit of a difference in the campuses. Student safety may be parked here under part of learning environment. Although we viewed it as part of learning environment, we decided to make it a separate goal because it's very clearly different in terms of how we strategize for that at a high school level.
Dr. Harmon, I have a question. I know you're covering Goal 3. I noticed on Lamar's CIP, it wasn't just Lamar's, but since you're here, there was a variance that I saw on Goal 1, Performance Objective 2. Okay. The campus course passing rates for English, Science, Social Study will meet or exceed 85%. In math, the passing rate will meet or exceed 80%. Mm-hmm. What I saw in some of the other schools was a specific will increase by versus meet or exceed for that specific item. Can you give us some detail as to why that would be different versus hitting a specific increase by target? And also, if the meet or exceed 85% and 80%, where it is, what is that an increase to or from?
Well, the detail on that you'll find in the strategies, which you don't have available yet in terms of the detail for the metric. Because again, that performance objective could vary. We chose the course passing rate will meet or exceed 80% because that is especially for writing at the high school. If you look at all of our student populations, 50% was the state average, 50-55% was the state passing average in writing. That's very aggressive for us. Of course, we have a discrepancy between student populations in that. At Lamar High School, one of the groups is 75% passing, and one of the groups is 35%. So what we didn't want is an aggregate. We didn't want to mask an overall improvement and leave out student groups. So in mathematics, our passing rate will exceed this, and then you'll see later the strategy assures that we're significantly increasing all student groups in that area. So you don't see that yet because that's part of what's to come in terms of the strategy by October 28.
And then can you educate me on the objective number 3, the percent of freshmen and sophomores will earn at least 3 credits by the end of the fall semester will meet or exceed, in your case, 85%. I saw that as a standard across the schools. Mm-hmm. Does that really mean that there's a significant number of sophomores that don't even attain 3 credits? Absolutely. By their sophomore year?
Absolutely. The history at Lamar High School, it is, unfortunately, the history at Lamar High School the past 3 years is that we will have 150 first-year freshmen, traditionally out of 750, who do not earn 6 credits and are therefore repeat 9th grade students. So we want to have an indicator early, even earlier than the semester, obviously 3 being half of a year, and we want to make sure that the students are on track for the 3. We can't afford to wait because when we wait at the end of the semester with all the state testing, we don't have time to prepare them for the class and also remediate it, and it becomes really burdensome for students. It overloads their capacity to be successful. So the reason that we have the 3 is since we determine grade point average, we determine rank in class, a re-rank in class for students who should be sophomores but lack 6 credits. We re-rank them, and it seems natural at the high school we would do that as a mid-year check or benchmark.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harmon.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good evening. President Hogg, members of the board, Dr. Cavazos, thanks for this opportunity to speak with you, and thanks to Ms. Wilma Sonato for inviting me to come talk a little bit and plug Ferguson Junior High. I'm talking to you a little bit about goal number 2, the percent of STAR tests passed. So what we set up with at our campus, meeting with site-based, and also I wanted to thank you for the opportunity for the PLC periods at junior high. It's made a big difference and given us the time and opportunity to meet not only with site-based but with a majority of the teachers to talk about subjects like this and establish a commonality of what we wanted to set forth as our goals. We set as our goals, for last year, we were at 84% for all STAR test pass, so we set a bar at 88%, and that's the phase 1 standard that'll be in place this year. So then as a staff, we had discussions about the final level, phase 2 level coming up, the recommended level 2. So the staff kind of rallied together and said, well, if we're headed that way anyway, let's start setting towards that goal right now. So you'll see that one of the performance objectives that we set, we put on there to meet the final level 2 standard on STAR Math from 46% to 70%. So for this past year, we were at 86%, which is the current level 1 standard, but at 46% for the eventual phase-in standard, the final standard. So our thought process as a staff is that if we want to try to raise that, and we put 70%, that's a pretty big jump, but we might as well start shooting for the end goal right now in hopes of having our students achieve that level and really raise the rigor campus-wide, because eventually that's where we're going to be headed to. So in addition to focusing on what phase 1 is right now, the campus is really pushing towards the final phase-in standard. And then we also, the other example on there is for all STAR tests from 44% to 70%, whereas right now we're at 84%, but at the final phase-in standard would be 44%. So that's where we're setting our performance objectives for this upcoming year. Also, it's not on here, but we address the system safeguards, and this gives me a little bit of chance to plug the staff and students at Ferguson Junior High. And Dr. Carter was talking a little bit about that and making sure that that had to be addressed, any areas that weren't met. And if you look at the plan for Ferguson, just want to brag a little bit, that we had 53 system safeguards and we met all of those, so we wouldn't have to address anything in that area. So, but had there been a deficiency, that would be one that we would include in this part. Okay.
Mr. Bolton, real quick, I love setting expectations high. 46 to 70 is a huge jump.
It is.
Is that a realistic jump, or is that setting expectations, here's what we're hoping as long as we get close, or is that an achievable goal?
Honestly, what we have going on right now, I think it's achievable.
Okay.
From what I've seen so far. And, you know, we've had discussions about that's, you know, you're talking about, the initial conversation was you're talking about 24% jump. Okay, well, how could we do that? So then that really opens the door to breaking down data for every single individual student one at a time, find out what the deficiencies are, which as a staff, I think that helps you reach another level and really opens the door to, hey, this, maybe it's not that unrealistic. We set a goal, we've been talking about 100% of our kids passing every 6 weeks as a goal. You know, sometimes that's not realistic. We had 3 kids fail a class, so we were at 99% passing rate for the first 6 weeks. So I think they're starting to envision a reality.
Good. I think it's part, listen, we don't want to get into each one of the strategies. We want to stay at the higher level, which I think is where we are, but I love hearing what these kind of goals are going to be. So thanks, sir.
Sure. Yes. Okay.
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's turn up seat.
Good evening, President Hogg, Dr. Cavazos, members of the board. I am going to discuss goal number 1, which is on track to graduation. The examples that are posted for you there on that particular slide for Piercy Elementary is to increase the percentage of grade 1 students performing on grade level in end-of-year DRA from 79% to 90%. What's unique about elementary is our focus and goal number 1 is on the developmental reading assessment and the developmental math assessment, as well as the norm reference test for grade 2. So that is something that you will only see in the elementary level. What we're trying to do at Piercy is going from at least, well, really 10%, based on the standards that AISD has set right now. 10% is a very significant jump. We have very high standards in our district, so we have set our goal at 10% for the NRT math for 2nd grade. However, on DRA 2, I went from 79 to 90 just because 89 didn't seem right. So just decided to go 11% on that one. What we're trying to do on campus as far as reaching these two particular goals and others like them is talking to individual teachers and getting them to understand why their students are not meeting that on grade level for DRA and DMA. It's rather simple to say, well, they're not meeting the standard, whatever that is. But if we're looking at reading, why are they not meeting the standard? What is holding them back? Is it fluency? Is it comprehension? Is it word study skills? And narrowing it down to specifically what the skill is within the test that is causing them difficulty. And then once we can drill that down to each individual student, then we can focus specifically on that deficiency that they have, which will get them to the on grade level. So that's what we're really focusing on at the elementary level. And the same goes for math when you're looking at a student who's not meeting that grade level standard. What specifically in math? Is it calculation? Is it problem solving? What specifically is holding them back? So we're really drilling down, looking at the data all the way down to each individual student and setting goals for them throughout the year and seeing how they progress through the year. So we have a middle of the year goal for them as well as an end of the year, and then every 6 weeks making sure that we're tracking to see if they are on track. Overall, as far as on track for graduation, we all know that students who have a strong foundation in reading and math are going to make for a more successful secondary student. So that is how we are contributing to the district standard of preparing students to be on track for graduation, graduating on time. Do you have any questions for me?
Perfect. Thank you. Ms. Turnipseed and Dr. Cavazos gave me a brief explanation. Our goal is our district targets, and the performance objectives are our stretch goals. So that's why we may be going a little
That's right. As we reviewed our scorecard this evening with Studer, that's one of the discussions we had to make it very clear. As principals heard about the scorecard, that was one of the, I think, the first question was which one is on the scorecard, and that's how we look at it right now. It's a draft.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. And Ms. Turnipseed, let me ask one thing.
Sure.
As one of our MPE principals, congratulations.
Thank you.
Did you have a little more freedom on some of these objectives that you were able to create? Just wondering, you know.
I wouldn't exactly say freedom is the vocabulary word that I would use.
You still have to perform and do this, but
I think definitely there is opportunity for a little more independence as far as how we're going to reach that goal and what do we need to determine or establish on our campus that we think will work best for our students. And I do think that sometimes those conversations are probably taken a little more seriously with the MPE schools because obviously we've shown a certain level of success. So there's a little bit of a higher level of I guess confidence there. So yes, okay, absolutely.
And without going too much on a tangent, Nicole has a proposal right now as part of an MPE school that is really challenging the system. And not challenging in a bad way. It's trying to figure out if that can be granted because of funding, and some of it is district funding, and I'm not going to go into the details necessarily, but so from a very positive standpoint, there's a proposal that she submitted, and we're going to give the board an update later on in the semester about MPE and the kind of requests that we're getting and things like that. But,
love it.
So.
We like being challenged, and you're also our guinea pigs with the first year MPE, so
wonderful.
We're growing with the MPE constantly each time.
And so is Mr. Boland, by the way. He's an MPE.
That's right. I forgot Mr. Boland is too. Ferguson.
And Ms. Jackson, who happens to be here from Key, supporting Nicole, I guess.
And Mr. Harmon will be one next year, I'm sure. So, Miss Solons.
Thank you, Ms. Turnipseed. I'm very excited about the possibilities of these plans, what they can do. And what we found a few years ago when we sat down and started working on the strategic plan, it's great to have a plan, it's great to have these campus improvement plans, but we found what we knew is that the plans had to start changing our behaviors as a board, superintendent team, as a team of the entire district. I'm wondering if you could give me an idea from the campus perspective, or do the teachers have access to the plans and the progress monitoring and some sort of a dashboard kind of way so that they can rally around and coalesce on these goals and work on them steadily through the year? Yes.
Yes, absolutely. We have created a data dashboard for each grade level, and then within that grade level, reading, math, science. And they're all on Google Docs, so they're living, breathing documents that are updated on a consistent basis. Within that dashboard, we have checkpoints, I guess you would say, to see how the students are progressing that are also aligned to the checkpoints that we have built into the campus improvement plan through the Plan for Learning software. So we are constantly looking at those, and I actually just met with all of my teams today, and we've got our initial data in, and we're talking about trends and patterns that we're seeing now and how we need to start addressing those. So yes, absolutely, and that is something that we look at on a consistent basis.
Because I noticed that the campus improvement plan is going to be approved in October, but when I glanced on the login system, it looked like the first of how's everything going is November. So, so that's, you know.
Look, they're like, that's a quick, yes, it's a quick turnaround.
So. I notice it's a very quick turnaround.
Very quickly, yes.
But, you know, but since that's all built organically in the system also, and then with a tremendous amount of coordination, I'm very hopeful, and I just can't say enough about what a difference I believe these campus improvement plans make. Dr. Carter, area superintendents, everybody that's involved, I believe that this is the very real work of hardwiring the strategic plan, cascading down through the system that will result in improved student outcomes. I believe that this is a quantum leap. I know that it's a tremendous amount of work and that it is not easy, but when we hardwire for excellence, we will get excellence.
Absolutely.
So I commend you all for the work that you've done, and I believe that it is the real legs of the strategic plan, along with all the other large, huge initiatives we've undertaken this year. So
absolutely, I agree with you completely. It has really changed the way that we're looking at the improvement plan and how we're tackling those. I mean, you know, we've always had strategies and goals. Have they always been written down in a way that is actually going to give us a clear roadmap to reaching those goals and having them aligned directly to the district goals as well? And so not only are we thinking about our own campus goals, but then how is that going to impact the district goal? And this is the first time that we've done that. And it's crucial if we're going to become or continue to strive for the premier school district. This is absolutely crucial. And the work that we've done has been grueling. You know, it really has. Yeah, my 29th revision is due tonight at midnight, so I really need to hurry up and leave here. But but really, it is it's a welcome work, because we know that it is what is needed in order for us to reach those goals, and we realize that. So as much as we may, you know, whine and complain to our area superintendents, they have been phenomenal in supporting us and helping us to write these goals so that they're actually something that we're going to utilize. So I agree with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ms. Thompson. Mr. Barron.
Thank you, President Hogg. Let me add my congratulations. Oh, you can't leave yet? My goodness.
I'm so sorry.
She's got something to do at midnight, Mr. Barron. She's got
I was going to say, congratulations again on your MPEdom, and to the other MPE principals. No, I just have one question. And
sure.
Do you want to comment very briefly on the response of your staff when they realized that on track to graduation was getting dumped on the elementary schools?
Yes. It was interesting. It really was. When we pulled up the data, and especially considering that our kindergarten and first grade were, you know, lower than we would have liked for them to be, talking about, yes, based upon how the kindergarten students performed last year, they are not on track for graduation, was a very interesting conversation. But once we actually sat down and looked at it, and our teachers do understand that that foundation is crucial, and it does start in kindergarten, and they know that. So looking at that initially was kind of a shocker to everyone that we're talking about graduation in kindergarten. But once we really sat down and looked at the reality of that, it is, absolutely. And so we understand that.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you for all your hard work, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, sir.
That's it.
Mr. Hibbs, you're almost done.
Okay. Oh,
You're
yes,
done.
Yes.
You're done. To the group, thank you very much. I mean, a huge, just huge leaps in these. For the administration, one of the things, Ms. Sullins was reading through some of these, and she saw the situation at Ellis, that there was a mathematical error that had them from saying that they had 1,400 office referrals or not office referrals, OCS, and was able to look through it and found out that that number is much less. However, let me use the north cluster as a example of how these campus improvement plans might be looked at from the administrative level and for you. And you guys have much greater minds than mine, so I know that you're probably already doing this. If we see a trend where with the certain elementaries that may feed into one junior high, let's say that cluster, Ellis, Rockmore, Larson, if we see those schools trending to having maybe a situation with higher disciplinary rates, that may be what's causing our issues then at the junior high and the high school. By being able to assess these campus improvement plans across the board and seeing those numbers, that might be able to take us and lead to interactions within those campuses that may be unique only to that cluster, because we know that we have a lot more apartments in that section than we do, say, similar makeups of campuses down in East Arlington where there's more stable housing. So, you know, it might mean that we as a district then have to become more proactive in certain areas where we have clusters that may be needing more, have more opportunities for need. So I think that's one way that we can take that. That's just on, that's under, I think, objective number 4, providing a safe, secure environment. So that's just one of several. So I would encourage us just to be able to look at that. Dr. Carter.
Mr. Hibbs, that's the kind of thing some of us have been talking about, is how to expand the entire planning process. Of course, we've been crunched in this transformation moment here, but you're exactly right. One of the other levels would be how the elementary is feeding into, you know, a particular group, how they have a conversation about identifying needs and that pattern kind of thing, because it might be one of those things that the junior high, for instance, can say, you know, here's what's happening with our 7th graders coming in, but each one doesn't necessarily see that individually, but collectively they might say, yes, we see how that contributes. It's almost the very same thing as in accountability, where there are certain subgroups that are not accountability groups because you don't have enough. But then they go into junior high, and that feeding system, if that has not been, if they have been served to the level of others, now that junior high says, listen, they're not getting the same kind of level of service that we need. So it takes that perspective. And I think the planning process will have a lot more time next year in order to accomplish just that.
Great. No, I mean, you're right. All across the board in any one of those goal areas are, that we're trying to, attain these type of increases. Obviously, we want them to be able to carry from the elementary into the junior high and then ultimately to the high school.
Right. Mr. Hibbs, Dr. C has an example.
Yeah, I'd like for Dr. Harmon to share an example. I'm referencing the writing one. You may have a different example, Larry, that you've mentioned in the network that is a game changer, I think, for performance. But why don't you share that example?
Yes. 4 of the principals in the Lamar cluster went to the Model Schools Conference. It's Bill Daggett's organization that he hosts every year in Washington, D.C. We went in the summer with the 3 area superintendents, and inspired us to think beyond our campus. If I can back up just for a second, we spin our wheels if we only look at our campus every year, because we know we're a school district, not a district of independent schools. And if we continue to act that way in our campus improvement plans, then we'll still treat symptoms of a larger problem and never get to the root cause. So the dialogue, the nice thing about having 3 area superintendents is we have a relationship with all 3 of them. They talk to each other and they see the bird's eye view of the whole network, whether they're a true feeder pattern or not a feeder pattern. Fortunately for Lamar, we are a true feeder pattern. And with the 4 principals in that network that went to the Washington, D.C. conference, we learned of firsthand from the different levels, elementary, junior high, high school, of a writing across the curriculum model. It basically turned Brockton High School, Massachusetts, from worst to first. They were worst in terms of accountability compared with other districts in the state of Massachusetts based on MCAS, and with a few simple things, back to basics, close reading strategy program, a math across the curriculum, and writing across the curriculum, they quickly improved. One of the elements of the model that was missing was a pre-K-12 model. So our takeaway from that was not to try to individually customize that model to whatever fits our campus, but what would be a best fit to intentionally introduce, develop, and then grow to mastery at different levels throughout a pre-K-12 system. So we've done that at a campus, Lamar High School, but Monday, the principals in the Lamar network meet, and we're going to design how we're going to implement that across pre-K through 12. So it's not just 4 principals, but we're going to take that model that's already research-based, that's highly developed and successful, and we'll customize it to our needs, but it has to be pre-K through 12. It must be pre-K through 12. And because Lamar High School is one of the TLI grant recipients where we have access to literacy grant funds, it only makes sense that we are intentionally using those funds for pre-K-12 and not using those as a shopping spree for each campus. Also, because of your investment in North Arlington and the Lamar network, we also now have AVID. So how do we intentionally leverage the Model Schools Conference and the funding of TLI and the opportunities of AVID and create a system? So even though we grapple with that with our staff in terms of coming up with a yearly plan with our CIP, it's far beyond that. And without area superintendents to help guide and to steer and know what's appropriate and when and what we need to do in terms of a system, we would be shooting in the dark. So I thank you for the support of the area superintendents. They're incredible, and I thank you for the opportunity to send us to the Model Schools Conference as a network of principals.
Thank you, Dr. Harmon. Ms. Solons.
Thank you. Dr. Harmon, I might need you back up here on this one. When we talk, and this is absolutely fantastic that this system that we create, it starts identifying some of these other issues, and I don't want to get too far off into one area, but the changes that would take from pre-K through 12, I think will be exactly what is needed for improvement, especially in that cluster. But I would like, what Mr. Hibbs mentioned earlier too, is that we see it also on the discipline side. And when we went through those plans, just the ones that we have so far. And if there was something that was the same type of intervention that went through the system, pre-K-12 on discipline, because the fact of the matter is the students are on the elementary campus pre-K through 6. Most of their time in our system is at the elementary level. And so then because we have 2-year junior highs, and I would, Mr. Boland, maybe you could help me with this, but is it, they're in and out so quickly, so, big changes to deep types of behavioral issues are hard to accomplish, I think, in 2 years. And so, now we're in high school, so I would just encourage that we take that look, not only at the academic side, but also at the behavioral attendance, those types of things too.
Absolutely, and as part of the year 2 goal of our strategic plan and is the discipline management system for the entire district. And so Mr. Hill is working with our discipline specialists and our campuses to develop that system, and we're getting, I think, very close to having a positive behavior support system that's clear for the campuses, that's consistent across the district, so the standards are set for behavior and expectations for behavior. And it's clearly articulated, and some campuses have already started, and I've shared some examples in the past, where Bowie High School and Arlington High and other campuses have already started implementing a consistent discipline system across the campus. And so that's the work that Michael Hill's doing right now, and that's part of year 2 in our strategic plan this year to adopt a comprehensive discipline management system for the district that is tied to performance targets and data and things like that for discipline.
Dr. Rush?
Thanks, President Hogg. I would absolutely echo the complimentary comments that have been mentioned by all my colleagues up here. Dr. Carter, I have one final question on the district's goal of a 2% increase with this on track to graduation example. Oh, that was it.
Oh, this one?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking at the on track to graduation, just the 2%. With each campus having their own metric to achieve that, how much wiggle room do we have as a district to achieve that 2%?
If all the campuses achieve their goals, and particularly their performance objectives, but if they attain just their goals, then we would exceed in the district.
Right.
Very definitely.
That's what I would expect.
And the whole reason about the 2%, it seems like it's a small number, but we're talking about that's the mass. That's the mass of all students, grades K through 12, and rising up like this. It's we're trying to go about it strategically, where we can get some strategic moves that are going to have a lot of leverage to move all these things. And so I think as far as wiggle room, it's one of those things that we don't know. This is a new metric.
Right.
We don't know just how much of a very powerfully implemented and effective strategy in 2 grade levels, for instance. We don't know what that effect would be just for the overall K through 12, on track. So that's what this is about.
Yeah.
And so we're going to learn an awful lot, including just how stretching the performance objectives were. And of course, what we're going to be trying to do is zero in as far as the overall sort of accountability of this entire system is looking at goal attainment. It's not so much on the performance objectives. Yes, they'll get information about the performance objectives, but it's really about attaining the goals. Performance objectives are enablers to attain the goals. Okay.
Right. Well, and just to put it out there, the final compliment, it is amazing. Thank you for all the hard work that you guys have done to look back in time 3 years ago and beyond to a static compliance-driven document to one of incredible articulated detail focused on enhancement and improvement in performance. It's amazing.
I do want to also give some good credit to Debbie Williams, who really zeroed in on Plan for Learning, and this software. It was a good find, a great find, and it's just been very, very good. It has helped also part of this transformation of thinking. As far as MPE, maybe one of the autonomies that we might suggest would be not about they don't have a CIP, but maybe it's not reviewed. Great incentive. Not by you, by others.
We'll end it on that, Mr. Carter. Maybe it's not as reviewed as thoroughly. Maybe there's other ways to word that. But I just want to say to our staff, as some of my colleagues have said, you know, when we made this organization change on our map and adding area superintendents, this is what we're looking for. This is the exact purpose of why we came out and did this. And we know y'all are our first set of feet on the streets, in the actual classrooms, in the actual buildings, helping give best practices to each one of those. And since that organization change, this team of 8 and the senior management made, it's working exactly how we'd like to see it. So I thank you for that. I also like to congratulate my colleagues and staff tonight. For the second, all of our meetings, if you start noticing a trend, Ms. Solons and I talked about the last meeting, the amount of time we spend on student achievement compared with other things. And many of boards across the state get caught up in many other things outside of student achievement. And I just wanted to publicly say thank you to all my colleagues for us staying focused on what we're all here to do, because it is easy to get caught up in some of these other things. So with that, it is 10:15 and we are adjourned.